I call this meeting to order, and we're going to do a couple of different things this evening before we get right into it all. But I will be asking everyone to rise for the singing of the national anthem. But before we begin that, Councillor Hammond has a few words, and then we have some guest singers, the Soleil Four, who will be, they are the singers for the Leamington Flyers, and they will be doing our national anthem for us. So if everyone will rise for the singing of the national anthem, and
John's going to speak first.
Councillor, yes, but I want everybody standing. So, and then Councillor Hammond.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight as we're about to acknowledge the accomplishments of one of our local hockey men in town, we would ask again that you please rise, remove your caps, and join together tonight as we try to understand the tragic loss of life that took place in Saskatchewan for the Humboldt Broncos hockey team.
So I call this meeting to order, and we're going to do a couple of different things this evening before we get right into it all. But I will be asking everyone to rise for the singing of the national anthem. But before we begin that, Councillor Hammond has a few words, and then we have some guest singers, the Soleil Four, who will be, they are the singers for the Leamington Flyers, and they will be doing our national anthem for us. So if everyone will rise for the singing of the national anthem, and
John's going to speak first.
Councillor, yes, but I want everybody standing. So, and then Councillor Hammond.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight as we're about to acknowledge the accomplishments of one of our local hockey men in town, we would ask again that you please rise, remove your caps, and join together tonight as we try to understand the tragic loss of life that took place in Saskatchewan for the Humboldt Broncos hockey team. And again, please remain standing for the singing of tonight's national anthem by the Soleil Four.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. That was actually probably the best rendition of the Canadian National Anthem I've heard in this council chambers, as much as we try. And we do try. So this evening as well, let's get right on to the real business. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof from members of council? Councillor Dunn?
Through your worship, I had a pecuniary interest with the addendum to the closed meeting this evening because I own property.
Okay, thank you. So noted. We'll move on to the approval of the council minutes held March the 5th. Looking for a mover and seconder. Councillor Verbicki and Councillor Wilkinson. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Motion carries. And is there any business arising out of those minutes? I see none. So this evening, again, we start off with something a little more pleasant and always fun to do. Tonight, Council is recognizing the efforts of one of Leamington's leading business owners and entrepreneurs for his endless generosity and dedication to our municipality. It was a surprise announcement to many of us when it was announced that the recent sale of the Leamington Flyers by Mr. Abe Fair to several local business people, who we feel confident will carry on the excellence established by Mr. Fair. And in light of the recent tragedies surrounding the accidental deaths of a junior hockey team in Saskatchewan, I think we all realize that either through tragedy or, in Leamington's case, success, hockey is an integral part of most Canadian municipalities. We may not all play the game, but we know it as a Canadian passion, and we know that through sportsmanship, lifetime connections are made and communities are brought together. So Mr. Fair stepped up to the plate and took over the Leamington Flyers organization about 8 years ago, and he and his staff have delivered to Leamington a first-class product. That kind of effort spills over into the local economy by way of filled hotel rooms, busy restaurants, and likely some local retail shopping. So the whole of the municipality of Leamington has benefited greatly from the efforts of Mr. Fair and his focus on the Leamington Flyers organization. So for this and many other reasons that Council is honoring Mr. Fair this evening, and we want to acknowledge his dedication to Leamington and to the youth of this community. So at this time, I would like to invite Abe and his wife to come forward, Lisa, to join myself and Councillor Jacobs, who is the play-by-play announcer, or John Hammond, sorry. John, yeah, we wouldn't understand him. So, well, we have trouble understanding a hammer anyway. Anyway, if Abe and Lisa would come forward, and Councillor Hammond, if you'd join me on the floor, and we have a presentation to make. So. All right, then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda is the Court of Revision, and Councillor Dunn and I are not members of the Court of Revision, so we will not be participating. But the Deputy Mayor is definitely involved as the chair, and I will hand over the controls to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the suggested recommendation is that the Court of Revision for drainage held April 9th, 2018 be opened. Moved by Councillor Jacobs, seconded by Councillor Hammond. All in favor? And that's carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? I see none. So we'll move on to the items for consideration. Tonight there's one, and that's the engineer's report for the Lebo Creek Northwest Branch, and that's the new access. So Alan, are you taking us? Is that not what?
I
you
believe
have?
it's the Dreger drain. I believe there was an error in
Oh,
the
a change,
agenda.
okay.
Yes.
I thought maybe it was just named that, even though it was the Dreger drain. Okay, I see it further down. So let me change that then. It's the Dreger drain. Where did I see the Lebo Creek? Oh, at the top, under number 1. Alan,
Yes.
I'm going to change that to the construction of the Dreger drain in the municipality of Leamington. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. In March of 2018, Council considered and adopted the engineer's report to construct the Dreger drain along Mercy Road 6 and westerly from the Derbyshire drain approximately 640 meters. Tonight's proceeding is to hold a quarter revision for the Dreger drain, and a suggested recommendation is provided in the agenda. Dennis McCready from Dillon Consulting is here to help us answer any questions, and as of the beginning of this meeting, we hadn't heard any appeals to this assessment.
Thank you, Alan. I don't believe there's anyone here in relation to that drain, no. Council, are there any questions that you have for Mr. McCready? None? Okay, then I've got the suggested recommendation here, and that is that the engineer's report dated October 16th, 2017 for the construction of the Dreger drain in lots 224 to 225, concession NTR, and lots 19 to 20, concession 6, in the municipality of Leamington in the county of Essex in accordance with bylaw 11-18 be confirmed. Councillor Wilkinson, Councillor Hammond, all in favor, and that's carried. And with that, I would entertain a motion to close the Court of Revision. Councillor Verbicki, Councillor Jacobs, all in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Moving on then to public meetings. We have one this evening in regard to zoning bylaw amendment, number 167, and Heather is taking us through.
Thank you, Your Worship. We're here tonight for a combined application for consent and rezoning application that has been submitted by Brian and Dixie Bradley for their property at 856 County Road 31. Council will probably recall last year the Bradleys applied for a combined consent and rezoning application for this property, and it was approved. However, it has not yet been finalized. The applicants have 1 year in which to finalize the conditions of a consent. The zoning, of course, is in place, but they have not yet finalized the severance part of it. They now have a purchaser lined up for the surplus dwelling lot that council approved last year, and the purchaser is interested in a slightly larger lot than what was approved last year. The additional lands that they would like to add to the area that was severed by council last year is 23 feet in width, and it runs the depth of the surplus dwelling lot that was approved last year. The lot area of this area to be severed, proposed for severance tonight, is 384.6 square meters and has, as I said, 23 feet or 7 meters of frontage along County Road 31. This section of the property is currently vacant. It is shown as vacant agricultural land on the aerial photograph that is up on the screen right now. You can see the area outlined in black, and it is highlighted with a diagonal line, like a hatching through it. Their proposal is to add this 23-foot section to the surplus dwelling lot that was previously approved in order to make the surplus dwelling lot slightly larger. When I took a look at this application, I had to ensure that what was being proposed was consistent with the provincial policy statement. There are a number of policies regarding lot division. I'm of the opinion that it is consistent with those policies. And it is also in conformity with the policies of the County of Essex official plan and the municipality's official plan. The property is agricultural in the official plan, and it's zoned agriculturally too. So as council knows, everything is quite specific as to what can be done in those areas. No lands are being taken out of active farm production. Property is currently zoned, this property to be severed is currently zoned A1, which is a general agricultural category. Last year, as part of the combined application for consent and rezoning, the surplus dwelling lot part of the property was rezoned to A5, which is an agricultural residential category. And it is the applicant's proposal that the parcel to be severed tonight would be added and also rezoned to the A5 so that it would be of the same zoning as the surplus dwelling lot that was severed by council last year. There are a number of conditions that should be imposed should council wish to approve this. Tonight, we're here for the public meeting. However, if there are no concerns raised by members of the public, we have prepared a bylaw and we are in a position to request that council approve it if you would so choose.
Thank you very much. Question from council to admin. Councillor Jacobs.
I thank you, Worship. Just for information purposes, is the 23 feet coming off agricultural land, or is that, what portion is that?
Through you, your worship, the property is agricultural under the official plan. However, the applicant's solicitor and the applicants have confirmed to me that that particular part of the property is not being actively farmed at this time, and it cannot be actively farmed in accordance with normal farm practices. And that has to do with the fact that their crop is potatoes, and there would be damage done, according to the applicant and the applicant's solicitor, there would be damage done to the remainder of their crop, which would be in the larger section east of the surplus dwelling lot. If you look on the screen, it would be where the words are to be severed and rezoned from A1 to A5. Where those words are, and to the north and to the east, is all actively farmed. The area that is covered by the hatched lines and the area to the south of the hatched lines, down to that red line, cannot be actively farmed. It could be farmed by hand, according to the applicants, but it cannot be farmed using the same machinery that they are using for the remainder of their farm. So because of that, I'm comfortable supporting the addition of this 23 feet to the surplus dwelling lot.
Okay, I thank you for that. The reason I was asking the question is, we've gone through with the 25 acres and so forth, so I'm just curious how that fell in, or was that being removed from active farmland? Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Verbicki.
Really, Mayor, thank you. So, I guess Heather, through you to Heather, where it says to be severed and stuff, you say the equipment's too big and they can't get in there to farm, right?
Through you, your worship, I was informed that the area that would be south of the diagonal lines is not being actively farmed. They keep it clean, but they are not planting anything there. They indicated that it would do damage to their crops that are planted where the wording is, further north and south.
Okay, so I guess my next question,
tried to run it.
my next question would be, is it possible then you could stick another lot in there?
Through you, your worship, absolutely not. The policies of the provincial policy statement, the county official plan, and the municipality's official plan do not allow the creation of any additional residential lots. period.
Now, my final question. Can you give 50 feet? Why just 23? If it can't be farmed and the purchaser may require more land, is it possible he can get an extra 23 feet, make the lot wider?
Through you, your worship, the application came in with a request for 23 feet. It really 23 feet or 40 feet probably wouldn't have made a difference, provided that the lot did not exceed 1.97 acres in size.
Okay, what would be the maximum you're allowed for frontage in a surplus dwelling? 195?
Through you, your worship, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's around there. I want to say, I was thinking 197 or something.
So if we decide on this tonight, then it's going to be the 23 feet. We can't give them extra feet considering, or maybe I'll rent that spot then. Never mind. It's okay. Thank you.
Any further questions of admin? So this is a public meeting. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to address council on the matter, I'd invite you to come forward and do so. I see no one. So what are council's wishes? Council Verbeke, move the recommendation. Seconded by Councilor Jacobs. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay. Next item on the agenda, actually, we're going to move, oh no, we aren't. We don't have to move them now, do we? All right. We are going to do a little dancing here, council. We're going to move 13.5 up to our next discussion, which is the report regarding the Leamington Kinsman Recreation Complex. And Terry Simons. That's on page 46.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm here tonight to recommend that council authorize the purchase of LED lighting for the Highbury Arena, the gymnasium, and racquetball squash court area from Electrical Wholesale Supply in the amount of $88,825 plus HST. Administration uses the 2013 facility condition assessment as a guide when budgeting capital projects year to year. This study made recommendations for energy savings to include the continued replacement of lighting to induction or LED options throughout the facility. An evaluation of the Highbury Arena was identified for 2021, a full replacement of the ballasts in the gymnasium by 2018, and the replacement of the racquetball squash lighting by 2016. In conjunction with this study and the ongoing efficiency evaluations performed by our facilities supervisor, we identified the Unico, Highbury, and racquetball squash areas as what I would deem as low-hanging fruit. These are the areas that we will see the most significant impact based on the existing lighting type. A little bit of background, during 2018 budget deliberations, we had significant light challenges in the Unico rink. So although we were budgeting to do the Unico in 2018, at the end of 2017, we started to experience some major issues with the lighting in the Unico. We were looking at doing emergency repairs that will get us through to the end of the 2017-2018 rental season. The costs of that were very high, so we started to look at the replacement of the fixtures at that time, and even that seemed to be a little costly. At that time, we reached out to our wholesaler EWS to evaluate the existing conditions. They performed a lighting study. They recommended the replacement of LED fixtures and initiated the Save on Energy grant paperwork on our behalf. At that time, when we reviewed it, administration moved forward with the purchasing of the LED fixtures from the wholesaler and then separately hired a contractor to perform the installation work. Using this project as a guide, we brought EWS in to perform a similar study of the Highbury racquetball squash area and the gymnasium. Since the Unico rink was taken care of with 2017 budget allocations, we decided to look at the gymnasium as we were starting to experience similar problems with the lighting as we were in the Unico rink. I'll note that the 2018 budget approved $60,000 for the Highbury LED lighting, $15,000 for the Unico LED lighting, and $42,000 for the racquetball and squash LED lighting project. There's an additional $10,000 for that racquetball squash area to relocate the lighting controls from what we call the fishbowl area, which is the original Shirk offices, into an area that is easier to maintain. Upon receipt of EWS's comprehensive study, it seemed like the most reasonable process to purchase the fixtures directly from them and then bring in local electrical contractors to quote on the installation. We did review a proposal from another representative. When we started to dig into it, there was contradicting information regarding the manufacturer warranty and what was presented in the report, so we disregarded that one. And I also want to note that in the EWS report, it estimates a total save on energy rebate of approximately $14,000 between the three projects as outlined in the report. The municipality has a good working relationship with EWS, which is a significant benefit when dealing with warranty issues. It's also important to keep in mind that the product supply portion of this project is significantly greater than the estimated installation costs. Administration also wants to maintain the consistency of the product purchased from the Unico lighting project throughout the various locations within the complex. And we do have the approved funding in the 2018 complex capital in the amount of $127,000 for these lighting projects. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Terry. Just real quickly from me, I haven't heard any negative comments on the lighting in the Unico arena. In fact, all I've heard is really positive comments on that. Has there been any negative feedback on? No, none okay. To me, doing this kind of investment is all about the customer experience, and that's what that building is all about, is to make sure that our residents have, well, as close to the best as possible. And I think this is a great idea, and I can't help but think it's going to save us in the long run as far as energy costs go. I mean, we've experienced that everywhere when we switched over to these, so I think it's a very good report, and I thank you for bringing it forward. Councillor Jacobs?
Thank you, Worship. Terry, on the bid process, was this done through a bid process, or was this just done through an invitation of that and another company, or how was this carried out?
So when we performed the work in the Unico rink, I think it had gotten out, so we started to receive calls from just various people asking about other areas. So we did entertain an option that was presented to us by another, not a consultant, but another individual that was looking at what could be done to help save energy in that. We were more confident with our dealings with EWS and what they were able to provide for us. They brought in their consultant, their in-house consultant, to do lighting studies that were pretty comprehensive, and we're satisfied with going through this process.
And the reason I ask that is that, like, this is a $127,000 project. Like, why wouldn't we invite bids for this? You know, I know we have a good working relationship with some of these companies. However, on the other side, I'm sort of miffed why we don't have a bidding process. And there's another item on the agenda tonight that went through the same process, and I'm just curious as to why we don't do that.
I'll let Mr.
Or why is
Neufeld.
it not done?
Mr. Neufeld address that?
As Terry was explaining, there was another group that came in to offer their services. The professionalism of EWS and the depth of the information that was provided by EWS far exceeded what we had received from another group. Now, as to the bidding process, because this product, we have been not just satisfied, this product is an excellent product that we can get through EWS. As Terry mentioned, the product component of this project is quite high. The installation component is lower. By working with a supplier like EWS, puts the municipality in a better position with respect to pricing, and we can focus then on getting quotes for the installation work. So we maintain consistency. We know the product we're getting. We're in a better position as it relates to warranty because we're buying the product directly. And so the bidding process will be on the installation work, not on the product itself.
Okay, I appreciate that, and, with all due respect to the process, I guess even if you went through a bid process, you could identify during that process what item you want or what type of product that you're looking for. No different than when we do we bid on a truck as an example. You wanted X number of able kilograms that it could carry, X number of axles, horsepower, and so forth. I guess I don't want to belabor this, but I think you know where I'm coming from, that I guess it's a significant cost, and I was wondering why I didn't go to bid on that.
Mr. Neufeld?
Again, after reviewing the process, it was certainly within the best interest of the municipality that the costs for the entire project would be lower by purchasing the product ourselves and quoting out on the work.
Yeah. I have Councillor Hammond next.
Your worship, thank you. A couple of comments. For those that don't spend a great deal of time in the arena, I can tell you this new lighting is beyond belief. I mean, the Unico Arena is really bright. I was just in some arenas in Toronto on the weekend, and boy, they could really use that type of lighting down there. So to Councillor Jacobs' question, we always strive to hope that somebody local will bid and is successful in getting some of this money that we spend and some of the work that's being done. And in this case, they were able to help us out when we needed some help by sending in their experts. And all they are doing is selling a product that maybe can't be purchased anywhere else, especially in town. So I'm pleased with the idea that we're staying with EWS because I know that they're a wholesale retailer here, wholesaler in Leamington. And I along with you, have agreed many times in the past. It's nice to see the quotes go out, but in this case, I'm pleased with the bid that we have.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Neufeld, I just want to confirm, though, make sure I'm hearing you correctly. The other group that did provide a quote as well, or made a proposal, are you trying to say that it wasn't apples for apples? It was a different product that they had, we know that the one from EWS works fantastic. It's a great brand, has a great warranty. But what the other group was selling was a different, let's call it a brand or a process of light. Am I correct with that thinking?
It wasn't just the product. The difference between receiving a binder report containing in-depth information about our facility and our needs in comparison to a one-page or two-page proposal to sell you product really builds, gives you great confidence, and the other makes you wonder if they're just trying to sell the product. As it relates to the product itself, I would defer to Mr. Simons to explain that.
So the other report that we received, they had identified on the cover letter a specific warranty on the product. They identified the product type as well. Our facility supervisor reviewed the products in great detail, was trying to verify the warranty of the product from the manufacturer. Also wanted to get an idea of where the manufacturer is, because through experience, we've had issues with purchasing a product and then having a warranty issue and then trying to either find replacement parts for that product or things, and just not been successful in locating them in a reasonable fashion. So what they had stated on their cover letter versus what was the actual manufacturer warranty, there was contradictions in there that didn't sit well with us, which made us pursue the product through EWS. Now, with the product through EWS, although we're looking at going with them and that, we did call around to ask whether or not the product was available, and we did not receive anything back from anybody. We didn't formally post anything, but we did reach out and weren't able to get a response on whether or not people could produce the same product. And especially with the confidence that we already had in what we would already purchased from EWS.
Okay. Further questions? Council's wishes. Moved by Councillor Hammond, support by Councillor Dunn. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Motion carries. Thanks, Terry. We'll go back to 13.1, which is a request to waive fencing fees. Mr. McCloof is here to present.
Am I doing this right?
Yep. You can probably slide the whole thing closer to you if it's easier, and then you don't have to lean in so much.
First of all, I want to thank Council and Chamber and Administration for allowing me the opportunity on a last-minute proposal to speak about a little bit of fencing here. This shouldn't take long at all. At least I hope it shouldn't anyway. As most know, or if you don't know, Freddy's typically does a run for diabetes. This is our 5th year doing that, and we do it at the tip of the park at Point Pelee National Park. And we normally get the fencing through the town for corralling and guiding the runners into the finish line. To my own mistake, I did not realize that that had to be brought forward through council to get to hopefully have the fees waived for that special time. We've done that in the past, but I personally haven't done it. So speaking to Peter, I was able to slip in here and request that that fee be waived if it's possible. Thank you.
Okay. Question on Council, Deputy Mayor?
I would move that we do this, waive the fee.
Okay.
It's for the betterment of our municipality, and we're certainly not going to be out any great amount of money. And I think if it's a better place to live and a place where we're reaching out to people less fortunate, why not do it?
Okay. Motion on the floor and seconded by Councillor Hammond. Councillor Berbiki?
Where the mayor through you, Mike, you've never requested funds from us in the grant stage of the budget?
I don't think I have. No,
So, like, last few years you've been paying for it yourself, or?
No, the last few years, I was in partnership with another gentleman who did it for me. I didn't understand the process when he was doing it, and I just thought it was a normal process. When I asked for the fencing, they told me there was a fee, but the process would be to ask council to waive the fee, which I wasn't really familiar with that process.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Jacobs?
Thank you, Worship. Along the lines of Deputy Mayor McDonald, I just want to say congratulations and the acknowledgement that you do. This isn't the only function that you sponsor down there, and I just want to say congratulations on helping this committee out the way you do, and I'll be supporting your recommendation.
Well, because nobody else has asked, what's the fee that we're waiving? About $200? Okay. So, okay, take that out of council's budget. Yeah. Yeah. The mayor's budget, whatever. Nobody's got one. Okay, so motion's on the floor. Council's wishes, all in favor? Motion carries. Have a good walk, run.
Thank you.
Okay. And now we're going to move 13.8 up to discussion, which is page 55 to 57. and that is a report regarding Plan 375 closing of Alley and Mill Street, which is not the Mill Street we know. It's the one up north in Staples. So, and we do have delegations in that regard, but Ms. Orton, taking us through that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In Staples, the lots along County Road 8 and Pelon Avenue between Pelon and the Trans-Canada Trail are located in Plan 375, which was registered way back in 1891. The plan, when it was registered, included an alley and Mill Street. And on the overhead, you can see the alley as it currently exists is outlined in red, and Mill Street is outlined in green. The alley was partially closed in 2006, and certain portions of it were transferred to an abutting owner. At that time, inquiries of the utilities determined that there was not any of their infrastructure located within the alley. Mill Street was never assumed, but it has not been closed. Although a notice to close it was sent out in 2006, it was not acted upon, and similarly in 1996, a notice to transfer the alley and Mill Street to the abutting owners went without success. Alleys and streets must first be closed prior to any conveyance. As the municipality has received inquiries related to the purchase of portions of the alley and Mill Street, council may consider passing a bylaw under the Municipal Act to permanently close both. A notice is not required since 2006 amendments to the Municipal Act. In addition to any administrative time, other than the cost of registering the bylaw entitled to the lands, there's no financial impact as a result of closing the alley and Mill Street. In the event that they are conveyed to the abutting owners, reimbursement of the cost of the registration may be included as a condition of the purchase. So the recommendation is that the remainder of the alley and Mill Street, as shown on Plan 375, be closed. Administration be directed to bring forward a bylaw to close the alley and Mill Street as shown on that plan and register the bylaw in the Land Registry Office.
Questions of admin from council? If not, we do have delegations here. And, well, Leanne, I know you're here.
Hi, I'm always nervous. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of council. Frank Martins and myself, we own 1184 Pelon Avenue, which has an alley adjacent to its north side and Mill Street adjacent to the south side. We also own 1182 Pelon Avenue, which is adjacent to Mill Street, the entire length of its north border that runs from Pelon Avenue to the Greenway. First of all, we are in complete agreement with the closing of the alley and Mill Street. But for the record, we believe that it's only fair and just that we would be offered to acquire half of the alley and half of Mill Street that is adjacent to our two properties. I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Questions from council? Nope, we're all
Okay,
good.
thanks.
Thanks very much. Council's wishes. Oh, Councillor Jacobs, or Hammond, sorry. I get you guys straight.
I'm the young
one.
Look, we, during our closed session, we didn't talk about what the anticipated legal fees would be. Do you have any guesstimate, Ruth, as to what it's going to cost for the, and we had touched on some other aspects of that.
In the event of a sale of any of the alley or the Mill Street, we can do most of the legal work in-house now. There might be some disbursements, but they would be very, very minimal. Legal fees for any potential purchaser would be borne by themselves.
Okay. Councillor Berbeke, sorry.
We're the mayor through you to Ruth then, so I guess we're probably gonna have to get a survey, and who's gonna pay for the survey and all the little particulars, I mean, if you're gonna do something.
The alley has already been surveyed, so there would be no survey costs associated with the alley as the parts are set out currently. Mill Street has not yet been surveyed, so there would be associated costs with a survey of Mill Street, and depending how it was divided. Estimate on that survey is upwards of $3,000, and the costs would be distributed pro rata to any abutting owners that wish to purchase.
And now, Councillor Jacobs, you've tried twice. You wanted to make the motion? Okay. And support by Councillor Wilkinson? Deputy Mayor, sorry. No? You're good? Okay. Further questions? All in favor? Motion carries. Back up to the top again. Report regarding economic development, pages 36 to 39. And James Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of Council. The purpose of my report tonight is to update Council on the current priorities of the Economic Development Office, give you a bit of an update on some of the projects that we've been working on over the past 4 months, and also provide an update on the general direction of economic development initiatives that are planned for the rest of 2018. To begin, I'll note that the goal of the Economic Development Office, in the very broadest sense, is to create an environment in Leamington that allows businesses to expand and grow. Economic development is by nature a very broad field. I mean, it encompasses activities ranging from marketing and promotion to business support to workforce development. And because the field is so broad, we really have to in order to be effective, we have to focus our efforts on a few key strategic priorities that are going to have the largest overall impact on our municipality's environment for businesses. In 2018, we have 3 main strategic priorities, and those are business retention and engagement, development readiness, and community investment. I would describe the actions that we're undertaking in 2018 as foundational in nature. We're focusing on creating business supports, gathering data, and refining our own internal processes to better respond to the needs of our business community. This work is, by its nature, low-key, but it has an outsized impact on the municipality's overall business environment. Our first priority that we've identified, that you'll see in the report I've provided, is business retention and expansion. So, in other words, making sure that our current business community stays and grows in Leamington. So since December of last year, we've focused on building a corporate calling program where we essentially go out and we visit our businesses out in their place of work, do a targeted visit with them to discuss what they're doing, what trends they're seeing, what their plans for the future are, and if there are any challenges or obstacles that we can provide them with assistance to overcome. And sometimes this is direct assistance in terms of direct assistance from the municipality, and most of the time it's connecting businesses to economic developments and business supports that are already out there from regional bodies, from the provincial government, from the federal government. There's a whole economic development support ecosystem that's out there that realistically has so many moving pieces that no one business owner can be expected to know how to navigate the whole thing. So a big part of the job is connecting our businesses with the people that can help them out with their specific challenges. So as I note in my report, we've put in place a very structured schedule for doing these calls to try and get out and reach as much of the business community as possible. We've conducted about 40 calls since December and continue to organize more on a weekly basis. So another resource that we've been working on developing a little further is the doing business section of our municipal website. This is not only the first point of contact for prospective businesses that are looking to invest in Leamington, but also it's a great resource toolbox for our existing businesses who are looking for supports, who are looking to expand and grow. We've been working on overhauling and updating the content that's on that website in recent months, complete with the addition of an interactive community profile, which I should be able to show preview for you here tonight. So what you see here on the screen is an interactive profile of the community that's going to be embedded in our municipal website this week. So if you could scroll down, please, Mayor. So it has a brief summary of our community, and then if you continue to go down, we have a map of our community, and then if you can go back up to the top, please. If you scroll down slightly, you'll see an arrow on the page. If you can click on that, please. And then up to the three lines up in the top left-hand corner. So this provides all the details. This is a statistical profile of our community. It is automatically updated with data throughout the year. It's not just census data. It's data culled from a number of different sources so that it's the most up-to-date data on Leamington that we can provide to prospective businesses about what our community is like here, what the trends that we're seeing affecting our economy are. It's more. I think that this approach is more effective than simply relying on census data. It's often said of Statistics Canada that a lot of Statistics Canada data that a lot of it is out of date already by the time it's been released. So perhaps if we could highlight the companies tab. Scroll down right there. So I'd encourage everyone to take a bit of time to explore this profile in a little more detail. But what it does is it has essentially a complete statistical profile of our community, what our business environment looks like that's displayed graphically. And then throughout the rest of the year, we're going to be continuing to add more indicators to this, specifically focusing on some of our tourism indicators and also more sector-specific data, so data on our agriculture sector, data on our manufacturing sector, that sort of thing. So one more initiative that we've flagged for 2018 in the field of business retention and engagement is the creation of a business leadership council. So what this would be is a small group of business leaders from within the community, ranging across all the different sectors within the community, which will come together 3 or 4 times a year to provide high-level guidance about the emerging trends that they see impacting our economy, which we can then take that information and use that to refine our programs and refine our approach to economic development. Overall, I would say that our aim is to give the business community as many avenues as possible to engage with the municipality, because on the end of the day, the more engagement with the business community that we have, the more that we can make sure that our actions are meeting the needs of our businesses. The second priority that we've identified is development readiness. So this is making sure that we're in a good position to welcome investment in Leamington when it becomes available. So primarily this consists of supporting businesses throughout the development process by helping them perhaps find available land or vacant space, helping them navigate through necessary approvals, and generally serving as a single point of contact throughout the whole development process. This approach is sometimes known as the development concierge approach, one person that can help them navigate through the different departments, the different approvals, the different agencies that they need to go through to get their vision for an investment or an expansion to their business from the drawing board to reality. So since December, we've been focusing on meeting with potential investors or existing businesses that are looking to expand as early as possible in the process. And by doing so, we can help ensure that they understand what's going to be required to realize their proposal, and then proactively helping them throughout the process. And part of development readiness also involves taking an objective assessment of the approach that we're taking, and if there are improvements in communication or if there are improvements in process that we can make to make it easier for the applicant who's navigating this process, then we want to be in a position to do so. The final priority, which I'll highlight quickly, is community investment. So making sure that we're making targeted investments in our community where they will make the most impact. And of course, Council is familiar with the wide range of different infrastructure investments that have been made in Leamington over the past several years. From our perspective, the main focus of this in this strategic priority right now is the implementation of the community investment program, the CIP, the grant program, which is used to disperse funds for property improvement in the downtown area of Leamington. So, as I note in my report, currently for the 2008 year, we have received grants accounting, or we've received applications accounting for about 42% of the funds within the program. That's well ahead of where we've been in other years, so the awareness of the program has certainly increased in the past years. And we're well on track to have the entire allocation invested this year. 2018 is one of the first is the first year that the Economic Development Office has been responsible for the administration of the community improvement program. And so what we've been able to do by taking responsibility for this is being able to be much more proactive and hands-on with the potential applicants, helping them get through the process, helping them identify eligible expenditures, and generally trying to make it as easy as possible for them to take advantage of the funds that have been allocated to this program. I'll also note that this year is the final year of the CIP in its existing form. As I believe Council's aware, we're conducting throughout this year a review and a design of a new program to continue the investment in the uptown area that will be developed later this year. And generally speaking, our objectives in this review are to try and streamline the program as much as possible, make it more targeted so that we can see that the investments that we're making are resulting in tangible improvements to the downtown area, and also making it as easy as possible for business owners to take advantage of the funds that are available. You'll note in my report I've not yet addressed the question of tourism development. The tourism industry is a unique and dynamic sector of our local economy, as Council well knows, and has really fundamentally different needs than our other sectors. And so as a result of this, as you know, the municipality offers targeted support to a sector through the works of our culture and tourism developer, who will be bringing a similar report to the one that I'm presenting tonight on the status of tourism development to the April 23rd regular meeting of Council. So in conclusion, I'll note that 2018 in terms of economic development initiatives is very much a foundational year. We're spending a lot of time this year data gathering, looking at what indicators we can use to measure our progress, and building the basis from which we can develop further initiatives in the coming years. I'll be bringing back a full report on performance measures in terms of economic development later this year, along with the findings from our data gathering and the other initiatives that we are undertaking throughout 2018. So further details of all of these economic development projects are laid out in my report, and at this point I'd be happy to answer any questions that Council may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. Questions of Council. Councillor Dunn? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Neufeld first.
Councillor Verbicki, can you leave the lights down for just a minute, please? Thank you. I think that this interactive software that James has introduced tonight is enticing enough that we spend just a few more minutes on it. So if we could go back up to the three lines, let's hit each area and show what is inside. Let's go to demographics. So inside this software, now you can see the kind of demographics. We're talking about potential investors from outside of Leamington, or even more importantly, some of our own businesses. What is the information that they need in order to drive themselves forward for growth and understanding where they live and where can they expand? You can see that there are, sorry, just scan down again. So here we have population, ages, telling, what's our community look like. Yeah, scan down, scroll down. Gender, marital status. Here's something, household incomes, Aboriginal identification, visible minorities, starts to lay out what our cultural framework looks like in our municipality. Let's go to the next one.
And I should also note that these statistics that are presented here are very much the building blocks of our approach to attracting investment. What we do is I have essentially a community profile that I use to respond to any prospective businesses that are looking to locate in Leamington, and I keep it about 70% complete so that when we get a request from a prospective business, we're able to get information about what specifically they're looking for, and then we can pick these building blocks that identify the information about our community that they're looking for. If they're looking to attract skilled workers, we can profile the amenities that we have here that appeal to professional workers. If they're looking to, if they've got questions about our infrastructure capacity, we have that information there. So we're able to tailor our package specifically to their needs and then get that back to them very quickly.
Yes, thank you. So let's continue to look at just some of the information. And again, this is about Leamington. Where's our labor force by industry, labor force by occupation, unemployment rates. So the information that an investor might be looking for. Let's click on the next one. It's on the website. Yeah, this is why it's so important. And here we have some of the income tax information, provincial personal income tax. Again, you'd be able to go in and mine what these things are, the urban tax rate and the rural tax rate, and incidentally, we're going to be talking about that later yet tonight.
And I'll also note, you'll note at the top there's a function for searching by community. The software, the next version of the software, which I'm given to understand will be released next month, has a comparative function to it. So there are a number of communities in Ontario, well actually across the country, that are using this same format right now. And so in the future, we're going to be able to essentially put together a comparison across comparator communities, look for areas where there might be a trend that we're lagging on or that we're succeeding on and identify the reasons behind that, and also essentially put together a fairly compelling story about why Leamington is a place where someone wants to invest and someone wants to do business or locate their family or community here.
Yeah, so let's take it to the next one yet too. Let's just click on quality of life. I really do want council to get a flavor for this. When we start talking about rainfall and snowfall and average temperatures and crime severity index, this gives potential employers or current employers ammunition to be able to attract the kind of employees that they want. It's about the community. Let's go to the next one. Rent, home ownership, housing completes, housing prices. So you can see that the kind of housing starts, vacancy rates, there's something that is pertinent as well. Let's go to the next one. Commute times. I was in Toronto this weekend. There, the commute times are in basis of days. I was speaking to a friend of mine who's a lawyer in the city of Toronto, and I told him that my commute is 7 minutes if I hit the light wrong. So this is just more information. Let's click on the next one as well. Oh, try again. There we go. So you start to get a sense of where are people studying? What are they studying? And this again is one of these things where we can say, look, our current employers are needing this particular skill set. When we can communicate with our local college and university to say, you know, we're agriculturally based, but the technology that's required inside of these greenhouse operations, for example, it's quite particular. We need the training. We need our young people to get trained specifically to this industry so that the high-paying jobs that are available in these industries are filled by some of our own kids. So it's why I wanted to, I think that's good enough. I think council gets the sense of what this interactive software can do. And, you know, to James' comment that this is a foundational year, I think he's being a little modest in that. Yes, he's gathering the information. He's getting to know Leamington and getting to know Leamington quite well. But the idea of a development type concierge concept, right? We've talked about this, having somebody who can help our organizations and our employers, our investors, to walk through our processes, not so much as a business advocate, which connotes some conflict with the current processes, but rather somebody who can help guide the person through our processes so that the application doesn't become a file which sits in one department before it sits in another department and sits in a third department. We have somebody who will ensure that the process keeps moving. And James, when James came to our senior management team to discuss this, one of the things that impressed upon me most was his acknowledgement that sometimes the files get into administration's hands and there is some information that may be missing. What we don't sometimes do a very good job of is picking up the phone and calling back and saying, there's information missing, we need to move this file forward. That's because of the sheer volume of the work. But James sees this as an integral part of the economic development concierge, for lack of a better word, service. So I think that what we're looking at here is, well, James may be calling it developmental. I think he's well on the way to establishing a new way of ensuring, a better way of ensuring that our businesses and our investors are going to feel welcome, have the information that they need, and hopefully that will translate into greater growth of our economic development.
Thanks. Councillor Dunn?
Through you, Your Worship. James, my first question, I guess, is regarding the CIP program and whether or not you have plans of expanding it from just the downtown area or putting in other CIP programs for other areas.
Through you, Your Worship. So, one of the processes that's underway right now is expanding the boundaries of what has been done as what has traditionally been the CIP area. Now, that's just to include essentially the greater uptown area, as I'd refer to it. We're fairly early on in the review process right now, so I don't have any definitive answers yet. Some of the models that we're looking at in terms of other community CIPs that have been very successful do have instances of having other regions that are eligible for CIP funding right now, but in terms of whether that's the direction that we want to go, I don't know yet. We need to gather the data.
And further, Your Worship, I want to commend you. When it comes to the actual CIP itself, did you reach out to these business owners in the downtown to get them on board to use up the additional funds that you've acquired?
Well, certainly it's something that I've been promoting in my dealings with the downtown businesses and my corporate calls and our work with the BIA. We've been promoting it very heavily. I will say, however, that there does seem to be an increased awareness of it this year. Most of the people that I've spoken to were already aware that it existed, but they didn't realize. They thought perhaps it might be too much work to take advantage of it, and they had never investigated any further. So what we've been able to do is say, all right, you've got this project that you've mentioned to us. You're interested in this program. Let's sit down and let's work through this application together, because the money's been allocated because council wants to see investments in the uptown Leamington area, and so we want to help you take advantage of that opportunity because everyone benefits in the end.
Great job. Thank you.
Councillor Hammond?
Your Worship, thank you. James, that was a great report. I think what I was excited most about was, you're becoming the liaison with potential new businesses that are coming to the area. to helping them through the process in order to streamline things, which better helps us in the long run too, so that we're not, using unnecessary time to have them fill out wrong forms and do all of those types of things. So I think that's great. And I mean, that's one of the things we hear quite often is that our process is cumbersome. We need to streamline it. So if you can add some assistance to that, I think it's wonderful. Also, too, I don't know if the Chamber of Commerce has accessed this program yet or not.
We're just launching it this week, so
Okay, well,
not
I'm
yet.
going to make sure that they do, because I sit on the chamber, and I think this information is invaluable to them. They're our conduit to the new business and the current businesses we have, and I think this information would really go a long way to help them. So I'll make them aware of that. We have a chamber meeting coming up shortly, and I'll make them aware that that's available. Thank you, James.
Mr. Neufeld?
Just one more thing. We have, a few years ago, we had a development review committee, which was a group that would sit down and look at all of the development ideas that were coming forward. We specifically changed the name of that to Development Support Committee because it sends a different message. James sits on that committee now. So he is aware of the applications that are coming into planning, building, engineering. He is aware of these things at the front end. So that's where he can pick up the information from the beginning and help walk them through our processes.
Councillor Verbicki?
Through the mayor, thanks. I guess when I get my computer fixed, how many clicks is it going to take me? How do I get to this page? How many clicks does it take to get to this? If there's people out there listening who want to see how much snowfall and rain happens in Leamington and our sunny days and that, how do I get to that?
Through you, Your Worship, it'll be 2 clicks. You'll go to leamington.ca to the Doing Business section, and then there's a community profile link right from there.
Councillor Wilkinson?
Fantastic question, Larry. Thank you, James. I appreciate you coming to council tonight, and welcome, by the way. Where'd you come to us from, though? Where were you? What town were you at before?
Through Your Worship, the town of Goderich.
Town of Goderich, fantastic town. As an outsider, you're going to find there's a lot of emphasis put on a certain section of our business community. It's our uptown. We find, there's some challenges we're unique down here, certain challenges. As an outsider, you've had a few months now to look at it as an outsider coming in. I'm just curious to get your take. Let's drill down a little further. Maybe the answers are in, what you presented here tonight, but maybe identify our strengths, maybe some of the weaknesses that you see, or the opportunities out there and concentrate on our uptown section, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. So one of the projects which I mentioned briefly in my report, but I didn't get into in my comments, is really over the past several months we've been really working on updating our capacity to identify vacant space in specifically in the uptown core, but in the municipality more broadly. But having a really good handle on what is vacant, if there's space that's newly become vacant, if there's space that's been taken, really helps us tailor our approach when we're trying to fill that space and we're trying to attract businesses there. I sit in on a lot of pre-consultation meetings with our planning department, and I'll often come to, if we have the data about what someone's looking for, I'll be able to come to those meetings with some suggestions about where they may be interested in locating. So having a healthy vacancy rate in the uptown core is actually a benefit when you're trying to attract businesses that are looking for that those smaller spaces. So being able to guide them through that process is an asset. I will say that, in our tourism promotion or tourism development presentation, which will be presented in a few weeks, we're going to focus specifically on the emerging culinary sector in Leamington as a particular strength. We have a lot of great restaurants in the area, a lot of really authentic restaurants, and that's one of the things that's been identified as a focus there that we can build on and develop that strength a little further. Absolutely.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. James, I appreciate this. I think most of us are pretty linear thinkers, majority. We need to see concrete evidence of information, and thought processes tend to be like this. So I'm liking this. I'm really liking this. And actually, council can use a lot of this information as well. Now, I see the little icon in the corner with the speech blurb. So is that telling me that people can ask you questions via this vehicle?
Yes, that's right.
Fantastic. Fantastic. We did that when we bought a car, and it was great. I liked some of the words you used, the economic development ecosystem. I think that's key. That shows me that you know it's more than just here. It's more than just administration. It's more than just what we as an organization do. So you need to use all those people. Union Water is somebody you need to use. And I just have a little example for you. I spoke to a grower, and he was concerned that we were not looking to expand Union Water. I said to him, there is no need. We're at not even 50% capacity. Really? Oh. So I said to him, listen, I'll get a meeting with our chair. So Rodney Bouchard sat down with this grower, and I'm telling you, the inroads that we made, inroads for Union Water as well. Here is now a grower who's willing to share his statistics with Union Water. They were having some hesitancy, some pushback from growers who didn't want to give up their info. Made huge inroads. So again, some of those silos are breaking down in that, and I hate to use that word because it's so cliche, but they are. So by recognizing an ecosystem, it's fantastic. The concierge thing, again, for you to guide people, I think we need that. I think everybody needs that. Whatever they're doing, they need someone to show them which way to go. My husband says Google that, but we can just say concierge that. The Business Leadership Council is fantastic. Because we are the entity that we are, the size, the diversity, the population, Windsor Economic Development can be that. We need to nurture our own. We need to learn from our own people. Again, I spoke just in passing with a grower who said he would like to have a conversation with some realtors and tell them, with this boom that's coming with cannabis, they need to start building in anticipation of this. So again, here's a platform, here's a venue for that discussion to be had, so that until the problems are presented, we've already solved them. So to me, I'm seeing this here. And then lastly, and I'm going to say this to administration, not only will James be able to identify places to go and things to do and grants to find and whatever, he will be a mirror back on us. So we will be able to see where we're lacking, whether there's a glitch in a certain department, where there's some steps that may perhaps, so I'm hoping that we can use that as well. Not just the people that you're servicing, the municipality at large, but you will also be a mirror back on us to see where we're lacking. So anyway, this is incredible. For me, I need this kind of stuff. The great ideas, I'm not an outside the box thinker, I'm an inside the box thinker. So this works for me, and I would say probably works for the majority of people. Appreciate what you've done in really the short amount of time you've been here. And like Councillor Wilkinson said, coming in as an unknown into a smaller community, even though size-wise we may be big, we still have a little bit small town. We don't know you, we don't know your mother, we don't know your father, who's your grandfather? That's what we know. So to come into a community and already have accomplished this, I say kudos.
Thank you.
Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you, Worship. Great information, love it. But on the other side of the coin, my concern, James, is with the fact that we lack a lot of high-tech individuals that are employable within our community. How can we overcome that? Because any more industry comes in, it's all computers and wizards and Silicon Valley types. Like, is this a hindrance for us, or is there a way that we can move around that, or like attract, or whatever?
Well, I mean, the reality is that I don't like using the term creative class because I think it's overused, but those are the people to which you're referring to, the tech entrepreneurs, the people who, essentially anyone who can really locate and do their work anywhere as long as they have a solid internet connection. That's a sector of the economy, obviously, that has seen a lot of growth over the past 5 years, 10 years or so. And really the key to, I think, to attracting people like that is marketing the quality of life in a community, and that's something obviously that Leamington has a lot of assets that we can market if that's the route that we choose to go. I mean, the community is well positioned. It's very close to major centers. It's very close to the border. It's close to a lot of amenities that would attract those sorts of entrepreneurs. More broadly, when it comes to economic development, we always have to market to our strengths. It is very difficult to attract a business or an entrepreneur to come to a community that they don't already have some interest in. But what we can do is make it so that it's as easy as possible for them once they do make the decision to come here. We can help them make that decision, but once they've made that decision, we can walk them through every step of the process. We can give them as much support as we can, and that will turn those people into, I think, ambassadors for our community as well, people that we can then use to go out and sell our community to their peers, to their colleagues, other people that are in the same sector, and build it that way.
Okay, so I can't remember if I did this or not, but Kevin, Mayor Morrison said hello to me to say hello to you and told me what a great employee how did he put that? Attracted away from his municipality.
Oh, okay.
So I had a sneak peek of this a month or so ago. Peter kind of showed me what was going on. So I was pushing him to push you to come to council to fill us in on what's happening. And when he showed me this kind of stuff, I just, oh my God, this is incredible. So I'm really, really happy to hear the response from everybody here tonight, because that's exactly how I responded. And this is awesome information and usable all the way around. Like the deputy mayor says, now you can reflect back to us what we need to know to do better than what we are. When I hear a question about attracting the right type or other types of employable people to the community, that brings me back to using all of this kind of information in a very professional manner to go back to St. Clair College or Guelph or whomever, the University of Windsor, and say, okay, we've done this for 10 years now, let's stop banging our heads, let's make it happen, and draw that educational institution here to this municipality, the satellite campus, whatever, so that we can educate our kids to be those people you're talking about. So this is something long overdue, and I'm really, really pleased that it's coming forward, and I can't wait to sit and play around on the internet to see what it says and does. And I'm really glad that it's updated with local details. StatsCan can be so stale with their information, so to know that you're able to update it on a regular basis, I think is just dynamic all the way around. So good stuff. Mr. Neufeld.
With respect to the information that's in this software, I believe we're also able to import specific information specific to Leamington that within our finance department we have, but Stats Canada wouldn't, so that we can bring very specific information about our community to this software. The other thing I wanted to mention, because both you and both the mayor and the deputy mayor have mentioned this reflection back to us about our processes and how when we identify gaps that we can fix them. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this kind of work is already happening and has been happening for at least 6 months through our director, Paul Barnable. This is, he's thinking about it exactly the same way, that James is involved in the Development Review Committee. James can come to Paul and say, here are the kinds of internal barriers that are being created between the departments that Paul is responsible for. I've already seen dramatic changes in our, not just in our policy or our procedures, but in the philosophical thinking of the managers who are within those specific areas. Now, culture change takes time, and sometimes the processes start to, well, you can never allow form to rule the process, but I can see the improvements happening already, and so that kind of reflection is already happening back to our director, and we're seeing those processes being made more friendly as required.
So, Councillor Verbeke.
I'd like to move to receive it.
Moved by Councillor Hammond. Discussion on the motion? All in favor? The motion carries. Thanks very much. Next item on the agenda is a report regarding the amendment of costs funded through the urban levy, general levy, and garbage fee. Mr. Sharon.
Thank you, Mayor Patterson, members of council. The municipality of Leamington applies a general levy to all properties within the municipality and also applies an urban levy to all properties within Leamington's urban boundary. The number one qualifying factor for an area being classified as urban has been the availability or future availability of sanitary servicing. The existing cost funding scheme between the two levies was established during amalgamation of the town of Leamington and the township of Mercia. And this was done in an attempt to balance historical services provided to the municipalities when they were once separate entities. Now, with the extension of our sanitary servicing into areas that were not historically part of the town of Leamington boundaries and our future servicing extension considerations, a review of the existing policy as it relates to the urban levy is in order. As residents that were not part of the historic town of Leamington are now required to pay the urban levy when they're connected to a sewer, it is more appropriate to remove other non-sewer related costs from the list of expenditures funded from the urban levy. I think it's, and I noted a couple times in the brief report, but it is important to note that the recommendations that are included in this report will not result in any additional levies, only a change to the services that each levy funds. And the objective of this report is to have 100% of the urban levy be used to fund the maintenance, repair, and renewal of sewers. Additionally, there will not be a change regarding those who do and do not pay the urban levy as a result of this report and this recommendation should council adopt it. As has been previous practice, if a property has the availability to connect to a sewer, they will pay the urban levy, and properties that do not have sewer service will not be required to pay the urban levy. Currently, the urban levy funds direct sewer costs, a portion of streetlight costs, perpetual care costs for landfill number 2, as well as some additional minor operating costs, such as a seniors windrow service that's offered in the town boundaries. At approximately 90% of the urban levy, sewer costs make up the greatest expense currently funded from the levy. However, staff time for managing the sewer system, so our inspection programs, our maintenance programs, all of our capital replacement programs that we manage, and corporate overhead costs are not funded from the urban levy, but are rather funded from the general levy. And so administration is recommending tonight to council that all non-sewer related costs be removed from the list of expenditures currently funded from the urban levy and be added and those expenditures be added to the expenditures funded from the general levy. And then in turn, an allocation for staff overhead from time spent managing the sewer system will be added to the list of expenditures currently funded from the urban levy and removed from expenditures funded from the general levy. So as is illustrated in the chart in the financial impact section, this will result in a zero net impact to the urban levies and to the general levies, as costs between those two particular levies will be generally equal in value. The garbage fee will assume the portion of perpetual care costs currently funded from the urban levy in order, again, to have 100% of the urban levy go towards managing sewers. And then the urban levy is then recommended to be renamed the sewer levy. Again, the recommendations in this report will not result in additional costs or revenues to the municipality or result in a change in service levels. Rather, the recommendations will produce a fair, more justifiable method of apportioning costs between current levies and fees for residents of the municipality of Leamington almost 20 years post-amalgamation. So within the financial impact, I do provide for council a snapshot based on 2018 budget that shows the current and proposed allocation of costs from the revenues collected under the two levies and the garbage fee. And again, essentially illustrating that while there is some shifting of costs between these levies, there's no additional cost burden to the residents of Leamington. So while the name change for the urban levy to the sewer levy is recommended to take place immediately so that it'll appear that way on residents' taxes, the list of expenditures funded from each levy as outlined in the report will take place effective January 1st, 2019, and that is simply because the 2018 budget is already set, and the amount of work that would have to go into amending all of those budgets and the cost allocation simply wouldn't be worth the outcome of doing that. And so the recommendation before council tonight is that the urban levy be renamed to the sewer levy effective immediately, and the sewer levy only be used to fund costs related to municipal sewers effective fiscal year 2019.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dunn.
Through you, Your Worship. I got a couple questions for you, Rob. First of all is senior windrow service. Can you explain that?
Through your worship, Councillor, seniors in the municipality can sign up for a service. Actually, I don't know the fee off the top. It's either $20 or $25 that they pay annually. And essentially, when the plows go by and create a large windrow in front of their driveway, we then have a service that comes in behind and clears that off so that that portion that they don't have to try and deal with that. But you have to be a senior to qualify.
Thank you. I just didn't obviously realize what the name is, what we called it, so.
Yes.
Okay, I appreciate that. And as the second question is, when it comes to the landfill perpetual care, is that something that all residents of Leamington pay a portion of?
Through your worship. It's actually a split. So some residents, so currently, I believe the numbers are here, Councillor 64, did I? Okay. So about $64,000. In 2018, the total cost of that was $169,000. $64,000 of that is paid only by the urban residents, and then the remaining $105,000 is paid by all of the residents, including the urban. So they also pay a portion of that general amount of the 105. And that was based on historical proportionate share of contribution to the landfill, so that when they buttoned it up and closed it, they had to determine this perpetual care cost-sharing relationship. And so that it was set up that way because that was a split between the old township and the town.
I appreciate you adding in that little extra to finish off, because not understanding where the 69 and getting out the shares in. Thank you.
Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you, Your Worship. Rob, you're saying in your report that there's a little different in changes as far as taxing and so forth go. But if the urban, some of that is, I guess, lack of a better term, downloaded to the rural, and the rural now will be paying a portion of the other side of the coin, will there be a reduction in tax in urban and an increase in rural, or does it stay sort of where it's at? I guess, is this just sort of a bookkeeping thing?
To your worship. I mean, we could look at it as a bookkeeping measure to a certain degree. There will not be a change in the levies. So the costs, essentially, the municipality levies taxes in order to pay for certain services. And so if you can envision almost two charts, one a list of services that are paid for by the urban levy, and one that's paid for by the general levy. And we're essentially moving costs from one side to the other side, from one list to the other list, and the bottom line expenditures that each levy must fund, and therefore that determines the tax rate, that's remaining the same. So the mill rates will not change. the typical resident will not see any change whatsoever on their tax bills.
All right, so just for, we do sidewalks. The rural community does not have sidewalks. How does that work out? Would that be involved in these levies, or is that already in another area within our budget?
Councillor, we tend not to, with the exception of sanitary servicing, because it is such a large and expensive service, we tend not to divide our municipality between urban and rural and have these sorts of comparisons and saying, well, I don't have sidewalks, why should I pay for clearing sidewalks? Immediately, if you're talking winter control, the counter argument to that would be, yes, but there's 20 streets, or 20 homes rather, on a 6-kilometer street. It certainly costs a heck of a lot more per resident to plow and salt your home and access to your home than it does a subdivision, that would likely have hundreds of homes, within that same distance. The other thing is we are one municipality now, and I think part of the benefits of amalgamation of rural areas and cities is that they tend to together share the costs that are provided to all of residents, and we tend, again, not to split hairs and determine who gets what service. It's not a cafeteria style service delivery. Again, the exception is sanitary servicing because it is quite expensive for rural homeowners to install and maintain and replace sanitary or septic systems, excuse me. And urban residents rather, who are connected to a sewer, they don't have that expense, and they gain benefit from that particular service, so they do pay specifically for sanitary servicing.
Yeah, I think this is going to add to the transparency of the whole scenario as well. So I think it's a good move. Thank you.
Councillor Berbiki.
We're the mayor, thanks. I figured between Laura and Peter and Rob, you could have came up with a sexier name than sewer urban. It's almost like saying greenhouse gas again. Everybody's got the bad idea with greenhouses. Is there any other name you can call it but sewer levy?
So I think that's lack of creativity is, could be given the nature of what we're dealing with. I mean, we could certainly look at it, Councillor. I mean, we were trying to keep it simple so that if somebody saw that, because the residents are going to see that levy line on their tax bill, and if they see sewer levy, they're going to know that that is a levy specific to maintaining, replacing, renewing sewers. They will not see a sewer levy because they're not paying that levy.
Unless they get a sewer, yep. Okay, so there is a recommendation on the floor, moved by Councillor Jacobs, support by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor of that motion? Motion carries. Move on to the next item, which is one regarding the purchase of IT equipment, computer hardware. Mr. Del Ciencio.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor and members of council. We're bringing this report forward tonight to purchase new computer hardware. Administration recommends a refresh cycle of no more than 4 years, and the current equipment of PCs and laptops is at least that old. We issued an RFP requesting pricing for various types of desktops, laptops, and tablets. We had 10 vendors submit proposals, and the RFP closed March 26th. Submissions were evaluated on 4 criteria: organizational information, manufacturer product line quoted, financial and timing, and support and warranty on the proposals. The proposals submitted by Advanced Business Systems scored the highest and met all the required technical specifications that we laid out. Some existing computer equipment that we do currently have will be redeployed to replace older equipment within the corporation. But some of the computer equipment that we'll have left is beyond use. So we're recommending to dispose of this after we have wiped and cleaned the data of any program on there. We're recommending disposal of the surplus equipment through donations to local charities and schools, as well as selling some to staff if there's any interest. The capital budget for this project is $170,000 in 2018, and the project will be fully funded from the IT reserve. In addition to these computer units, costs will be incurred for environmental fees and additional purchases of peripherals and other related hardware. But the total cost projected will be within budget. The existing equipment for disposal has a $0 net book value, and no proceeds on the disposal are anticipated. The recommendation is that council authorize the purchase of new computer hardware from Advanced Business Systems at a total cost not to exceed the $170,000 budgeted, and that administration be authorized to dispose of the existing surplus computer equipment through donations to local schools, not-for-profit agencies, and charities, as well as sale to staff, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute this agreement.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you, Worship. I don't want to sound like a broken record tonight, but I'm going back that you've had 10 vendors on this, and you did a weighted evaluation to get the successful bidder. And out of the 10 bidders, and I know I've asked this before, and I'm not asking for a detailed discussion on each individual bidder. However, what were the bids? I mean, like, was there a huge discrepancy between them and so forth? And I guess when you get this many bidders, and I know what you're going for, you want continuity, you want to be able for servicing and so forth, and the weighting that you had put within the report, the 30%, 20%. I understand all that, but and I know we've asked for this before, and I was sort of under the illusion that we would be receiving them, the bids of the 10. You know, I know that Mr. Brown tonight has a truck on, and we see both bids. I'm just curious as to why this isn't being presented to us to see where that spread is in that process.
I guess we didn't produce or we didn't attach all the bids to this report tonight, because what we had to do when we rated this, or before receiving these bids, we had this rating system in place to see, because it wasn't just price, and we had to have a fair comparison of different models being quoted from different manufacturers, and to get multiple bids so that we had a choice. We did not select one manufacturer, because had we selected one particular manufacturer, we would have had very limited bids, and we don't feel that that would have been competitive or best for administration. So because we looked at it in these four criteria, and based on all the scenarios quoted for each respective desktop, laptop, tablet, and whatnot, I couldn't put it in any nice chart that would be accessible in this kind of a report. And the submissions for each, because of the quantity of options that we asked for, made all the proposals large. So we talked about it as to how do we attach it here or how not, and there was no real clean way to put it into this report. So all of the analysis was done, and we just referenced how we came up or how we scored every vendor.
I'm not questioning the integrity of the process or of administration. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. I'm just curious to see where the bids are. And I guess I know where you're coming from, that you might have had a bid that was 1/3 of the price of this, but the equipment wasn't suitable to what you wanted to have. But I still don't think that really removes the fact that we could have a look at that. You know, I mean, even if it was, you know, Mr. Del Ciancio bid was 80%, you know, Mr. Beaky was 60, and, you know, like, I guess that's where I'm going with this, just so that we can see it type thing. But again, and I want to be very, very clear, there is no indication or presumption or that I'm questioning the integrity of your department or the process, so.
No, I mean, that's fine, and none was taken on that. I think from our standpoint, because price was one factor, it would just be to tell you where the winning proposal wound up in that rating isn't giving the true picture of did it meet all the specifications and whatnot. I can tell you it wasn't the lowest bid, but it wasn't the highest bid. But in the context of everything, when we looked at warranty and support and all that, it scored the highest. So in terms of cost only, it was right in the middle of the pact.
And I appreciate that, and I went through that when I was with the ambulance service. We buy defibrillators, they were extremely expensive. But again, we didn't buy the cheapest, or, you know, you did what the bid was, what you based your needs on. But it's a great job, and I think IT's done a great job. And again, I want to very clear that I respect you and your department, so there's no derogatory comment here. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from council? What are council's wishes then? Move the recommendation by Councillor Jacobs, support by Councillor Wilkinson. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is the purchase of cab and chassis. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and members of council. So yeah, this report is on the results of tenders received for the purchase of a replacement cab and chassis and a new utility tractor, as well as to request council authorization to award the tender to the lowest qualifying bidders. So during the 2018 budget deliberations, funds were approved for the purchase of this equipment. Tenders were received on February 20th. After reviewing, one tender for the utility tractor did not meet the minimum required specifications and was therefore disqualified. So upon council approval to purchase the cab and chassis, a second tender will then be issued to outfit the truck with the required dump box, plows, etc., and then I'll bring that report back to council for approval. For the utility tractor, the budget was $40,000. Unfortunately, the lowest qualifying bid came in around $7,500 over budget. With the horsepower and the accessories we needed on this tractor for all-season use, the tendered tractor ended up being a higher model series, which in turn increased the price, unfortunately. Administration would still like to recommend we proceed with this purchase. The over-budget amount will be mitigated by other under-budget fleet purchases and is expected no further funding will be required from the fleet and equipment reserve. So the recommendation for the report is that the purchase of the replacement cab and chassis from Leamington International Truck and the new utility tractor from Delta Powers out of Essex, as detailed in the report, be approved. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Questions from council? Councillor Hammond.
Your Worship, thank you. Ken, just a comment. I'm really pleased to see that Leamington International Trucks is back in the bidding process again with us. I know they were absent there for a while. And moreover, I'm pleased to see that they were the winning bid. So that's my comment. Thank you. So I'll move the acceptance of the report.
Okay, supported by Councillor Dunn. Discussion on the, sorry, Councillor Wilkinson.
Sorry for the late question, Your
Nope,
Worship.
no worries.
Ken, I'm just wondering, Councillor Jacobs and I having a discussion here on the side, looking at the cost of this tractor. I know it does more than just pull the blade to cut grass around the municipality. It does other jobs as well. But anyway, has there ever been any thought into a lot of that, probably upwards of 75%, 80% of the time it is cutting grass, I'm assuming, with correct? Having equipment like this versus outsourcing those jobs to have the grass cut at the ball diamonds or whatever, has that comparison or has that ever been considered?
Oh, every year.
Every year. Through you, Mayor. Well, it's a good question. We have looked at it. Actually, one of my first years here, it was an exercise I went through, and I think it's been done before. And actually, it's this tractor will pull a 15-foot gang mower. And the one thing contractors, most contractors don't have that type of mower because they're typically doing residential and commercial lots. So this is actually the one area where the municipality really is a lot more efficient because we're able to, we have so much acreage of turf that needs to be cut that where you're just pulling a 15-foot wide mower back and forth, you really it's very efficient. Other factors that have come up is especially for the sports fields like the soccer, the baseball, a contractor tends to have a very rigid schedule and they have to be as quick in and out as possible for profits and stuff, whereas a municipality, if we've had rain, we can decide not to go in there if we start to sink and pull out, whereas a contractor may not be so inclined to do that. So there are definite pros and cons. There might be some opportunities with smaller jobs, but this is one area where the municipality is fairly efficient. And this tractor would also be used, as you mentioned, it is year-round. This one with the talk of the new trail coming in along the county road there down by Seacliff and Robson Road, Seacliff Park being open in the winter now, this is a kind of a perfect tractor because it's a little bit bigger to deal with all the snow that's the county's going to push up on the sidewalk and stuff like that. So, and Robson Road with it being, there's basically no boulevard, so there's a lot of snow that goes up there, so a little bit of extra muscle will help.
Okay. No further questions? Council's wishes? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, pardon? Oh, that's right, it was a late question, okay. Discussion on the motion then? All in favor? Motion carries. Last report is one regarding the CWAT's functional design. Mr. Botham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The countywide active transportation system, or CWAT study, sets out specific requirements for the approval and construction of infrastructure initiatives, particularly those initiatives that are eligible for funding through the CWAT's budget. One such requirement is the preparation of a functional design study. The municipality of Leamington applied to the CWAT's Active Transportation Committee for funding to complete functional designs of active transportation facilities within Leamington that are part of our own active transportation plan. The facilities are bike lanes along Talbot Street West, Leamington 8, Talbot Street East, Leamington 9, Seacliff Drive West, Leamington 22, and Peely Drive, Leamington 17. And you can see those on on figure 1 of my report. With respect to segments Leamington 8, 9, and 22, preliminary review suggests that per our own active transportation plan, the bike lanes would fit within our existing road structure. Council also approved application for Leamington 17 along County Road 33 or Peely Drive between Sturgeon Creek Bridge and Mercy Road 12 in a previous report. Through a functional design study, it's proposed to change the current CWAT facility type from assigned route to paved shoulders. All 4 segments were approved for funding after we applied to the CWATs or the AT committee. All 4 segments were approved for funding to complete the functional designs in 2018, meaning that 40% of the costs would be funded from the County of Essex CWATs program. Leamington 8, 9, and 22 functional designs will provide the design and construction estimates of pavement markings, signs, facilities, and also the necessary updates to our traffic signal legal plans. The information from the functional designs will be used to prepare CWAT's applications later on in 2018 and construction cost estimates. Functional design for Leamington 17 will be used to prepare CWAT's application later in 2018 for the construction of paved shoulders in 2019 that would coincide with the planned resurfacing of that same section of Peely Drive at the end of our sanitary sewer construction project. Administration is recommending that R.C. Spencer be awarded a contract to complete the functional design of Leamington 8, 9, and 22. Rick Spencer's office has recently completed the design of a number of AT facility projects within our urban area. Most recently, the pedestrian crossover and AT facility contract that was issued last year to replace all of our courtesy crossings and install bike lanes along Oak Street East, Wilkinson Drive, Pulford Avenue, and Erie Street. They are therefore very familiar with the Leamington AT plan and the CWATS design parameters. We're also recommending that Dillon Consulting be awarded a contract to complete functional design of Leamington 17. Dillon Consulting is familiar with AT facility functional designs and is our consultant for the Peely Drive sanitary sewer project. Therefore, they have already in their possession the topographic site data and utility information that they'll need to complete this project. The active transportation link along Peely Drive or Bevel Line between Seacliff Drive and Point Peely National Park comprises a number of uniquely challenging segments. Segment 1 is Seacliff Drive to Sturgeon Creek Bridge. Segment 2 from Sturgeon Creek Bridge to Mercy Road 12, which is Leamington 17 that I'm talking about tonight. And segment 3, Mercy Road 12 down to Mercy Road E or Point Peely National Park. So through Dillon's functional design, they'll directly address that segment number 2 between Sturgeon Creek Bridge and Mercy Road 12. But due to the relationship with Point Peely, and that is again due to the relationship with the Point Peely Drive Sanitary Sewer Project 2019 paving restoration plans. Segment 1 and 3 are proposed to be off-road segments and not governed by or influenced by this final pavement restoration plan. But Dillon's final report will tie in segments 1 and 3 at a higher level in order to create a single reference tool for future planning and construction of the entire Bevel Line, Peely Drive, or County Road 33 active transportation link. By way of the Leamington Active Transportation Study, Segment 1 is recommended to be an off-road trail due to the large boulevard area. Again, that's the segment between Seacliff Drive down to Sturgeon Creek Bridge. That's proposed to be a large, an off-road trail in the large boulevard area that's available along the northeast side of Bevel Line. Segment 3 from Mercy Road 12 to Point Peely National Park will consider an off-road option as there is not enough room to allow for active transportation within the road allowance. So in the financial impact section, you'll see that 40% of the design work is funded by the CWATS program, and the Leamington share, the 60% share that's Leamington's, will be funded through the gas tax program. So again, we are recommending that an assignment be awarded to R.C. Spencer Associates and an assignment to Dillon Consulting.
Thank you very much. Councillor Verbicki.
We're the mayor, thanks. So I'm happy about, as long as it doesn't take up during busy season from Sturgeon to, I'm going to say D, but it's Road 12. Has there been any thought of putting conduit in yet for fiber? If we ever get fiber down here before you pave over it, so we don't have to do it again?
We did have some discussion about that a few years ago before we started the sewer project, and we had some discussion with Bell and another utility company, if I'm not mistaken. And you can refresh my memory, Rob, if you like, but I believe we opened that door, we had that discussion, and we didn't get the interest from those companies.
Councillor Dunn.
Through you, Your Worship. It helps to turn the microphone on. Alan, a couple questions for you. Leamington 17. It talks about doing paved shoulders. Is it going to be one side or the other, or both sides?
We would be looking at paving both sides of the road, the shoulder on both sides.
And also with 8, 9, and 22, it says it will fit within the existing road structure. Are we talking downsizing the road or actually putting it up onto like a sidewalk or along the Highway 20 was going to be planned through Kingsville?
What I was trying to convey with that comment was that it's different than the Peely Drive project in that the urban work, Leamington 8, 9, and 22 is a lot of line painting and signage. and will fit on the road platform we have, but Peely Drive is construction. We'll need to build shoulders.
So the current road is wide enough to add bike lanes, is if that answers your question.
Well, it just, depending on what part of that, because coming from Kingsville, it opens right up, but there's certain parts that are really tight in that one section. That's why I thought it might be a little tight. And I know at one point to Kingsville, we're going to be on the side. We're not going to be on the roadway,
Yeah.
right?
Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, this part is just from Branton Drive to Erie Street, so it's not a very large, long area, but the road itself is wide enough to incorporate into the road.
Okay. Councillor Hammond?
Your Worship, thank you. Alan, you did explain in some detail about why that we're not doing section 17 or number 17 along Point Peely Drive. And I guess to my point, I would have thought, not being a layperson, but, you know, with all the construction that's going on there now and all of the mess, wouldn't now be the time to be putting this path in down there so that once it's done and the equipment is cleaned up, it's ready to be utilized, as opposed to, you know, doing their sewer connections and finishing all that up and then going back later on next year at some point to try to do it.
Certainly, if I understand your question correctly, the Leamington 17 that we're proposing here is from Sturgeon Creek down to Mercy Road 12, and that will be on-road paved shoulders. And then south of Mercy Road 12, the proposal through our own ET study is to go off-road behind on private property, and again, which is totally separate from the sewer construction project. So there would be no benefit either way, at least in that segment. And certainly the segment between Seacliff Drive and Sturgeon Creek Bridge is off-road, but it is a separate project, and it's something that we are balancing with the budgets that we have and the amount of money that we can apply for through the CWATS committee, and it just makes sense to look at the segment between Sturgeon Creek Bridge and Mercy Road 12 right now, while we're working with the county on the road construction.
If I may, I think that's where I was coming from. So it is going to be done. That's also going to be done as the road is paved now. That from Sturgeon Creek onto 19, I think we said, or 12 rather. Yes.
12, yeah. Mr. Neufeld?
I think what's important to understand is that as this project gets nears completion, there will be the road will have a layer, but the final layer is not going on until 2019. So we are working to design, to try and incorporate these shoulders at the time when they come back for the final. And if I may, Mr. Mayor, I can tell you that the component from Road 12 to Point Peely Drive is really the part that I'm even more excited about. As Alan mentioned, it's through our AT study, but as you know, it's very narrow even to Road 12, but from Road 12 to Point Peely National Park, well, you get into what's called the Narrows. There's a reason for that. And even then, it's safety, with safety in mind, what we're looking at is taking, going down off of the road to the, I suppose it would be the northeast of the road, which will then come up right at the gates. So we can get the bikes off of the road, at least the active transportation bikers. The ones who have the expensive high-speed bikes with the very thin tires, they won't want to get off the road to get down onto that sort of a facility like we have on Wilkinson Drive or our bike paths. However, if we can give safe passage to a majority of the people, recreational bikers, by getting them off of that road, right to the gates of Point Peely National Park, I think that we really have something going then.
Councillor Jacobs.
Thank you, Worship. Just going along with what Peter's saying, when you say off-road, is that like a trail that you're going to be, or will that be like a paved bypass, I guess, around the current roads?
Further to what Mr. Neufeld said, I guess that remains to be seen, what the final surface will look like.
All based on money is really what it comes down to. Yeah. Peter?
If we have the budget for it, and obviously, and council is in agreement, I know I would very much like to see that component of it paved as well, because it would allow even those with the more high-speed bikes to get off of the road and still have safe passage on a place where their tires won't be negatively affected by the stones, the small stones. It's expensive, but if you travel to other cities, I'll give you Ottawa, for example. Now, I know we're not Ottawa, but when you look down their old railway lands and their bike paths, they're all paved. And there's proper lines on those facilities, including directional arrows, walking, biking. The whole thing is designed for bikes and pedestrians to work together on a common facility. So if we have the budget for it, I know how I would be pushing. I'd be pushing to see it paved.
And if I may, Your Worship, just you're saying private land. Are you saying this would be connected to the current road structure going around, or will we be going through private properties to get to this?
I think what that means is it is currently private, that we would have to make some acquisition of a small amount of land that would essentially run along the top of the drain. There's a large ditch or drain on the the northeast side of the Narrows. So from that point over, it would mean purchasing some land wide enough to create the path. It's currently private.
Okay. Further questions? Moved by Councillor Verbicki, supported by Councillor Jacobs. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Motion carries. Thanks, Alan. So we have some matters for approval. The minutes of the Leamington. Do we? Did I miss one? Okay. Sorry. Let me get there. Nope, not that one. Oh, it was on that one. Okay, so it's a financial report regarding 2018 final tax levy by law. And Laura, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Patterson. I promise I'll be quick. Section 312, Part 2 of the Municipal Act provides that a council of a municipality may pass a bylaw after the adoption of the estimates for the years to levy a separate tax rate on the latest available property assessment roll. As council will recall, we passed the 2018 budget and the final levies in December of 2017 this year. So the Act also requires that tax rates to be established in the same proportion to the tax ratios, and tax policies were established by County Council through Bylaw 10-2018 in February of this year. I also wanted to inform Council that in 2018, the group of Essex County Treasurers will be reviewing the tax ratios to ensure that they continue to make sense and they're fair and reasonable. So I will be part of that committee as well, and we plan to bring that forward to Council prior to approving our 2019 budget so we can put them in place for future years. So the final tax levy may include all of the taxes and charges that are outlined on page 2 of my report. It is unlikely that we will be billing our 2017 annual maintenance drain charges with our final tax levies this year. We will do a separate billing. We'll make sure that they go out as soon as we can, but due to timing and some resourcing, we had to defer them. So in order to not delay our regular tax or final tax levy, we will just do them separately. So the bylaw also establishes the 2 tax dates which we have traditionally had, which are June 13th for the first installment and September 12th for the second. And we will continue to offer the grace days, 2 days of grace for late payments as established by policy, and interest remains the same. So the recommendation before council tonight is that a bylaw to provide the 2018 final tax levy for the municipality of Leamington be presented to council for consideration.
Okay, questions? Councillor Verbeke?
Really, Mayor, neighboring communities always say their tax rate's 3%, but with the county and the school on, it's a little bit less. Now, ours was at 1.8. Are we still at 1.8, or with all the other things coming off, can we say that we're lower than 1.8?
No.
I don't have that information right at my fingertips. I can tell you in total what the average, but I don't have a percentage. I can send it to you though, certainly.
Moved by Councillor Verbeke, support by Councillor Wilkinson. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Carried. Now, matters for approval. Leamington Police Services Board meeting held January 24th. Looking for a mover and seconder. Councillor Jacobs, Councillor Dunn with question.
Through your worship, I just, with reading through the report, it was talked about Inspector Miller noting that Leamington is much safer than Windsor and Chatham. Was there a report or something that was brought forth that he came out with that statement?
Yes. And they don't share the detailed reports publicly. And I think that's, I can't remember if it's an OPP thing or what, but we do get to see the reports, and the statistics are really quite good. And it's a question I think that Councillor Jacobs and I always ask, how are we doing? And it's been a slow progression, but it has been getting better. We keep moving up the ladder towards the safest community type thing, and so we're heading in the right direction.
And also with this, we've had discussions between ourselves about more patrols uptown. Has there been any thought to that, or is there anything with the new inspector?
We've constantly badger them for that. They report that their hours are there for foot patrol. We have had reports back from the merchants uptown saying how nice it is to have the police officers walk into their places of business. In my opinion, we could always use more, and we'll continue to ask for more and see where it goes from there. Okay. Any further questions? All in favor of the motion to receive? And carried. And then the next item is the report from the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee, held January 16th, moved by Councillor Verbeke, support by the Deputy Mayor. Discussion on that motion. All in favor? And carried. Other matters for consideration. Correspondence received from the City of Windsor dated April 4th, 2018 regarding End to Homeless campaign. Move to receive. Motion on the floor. Support by Councillor Hammond. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Dunn.
Through your worship, I read this and it's very interesting, and actually I had Salvation Army come to me regarding this. Who do they go to for additional help? Because they put people after their fire up in a hotel, or they've been asked to, when it came to youth and other people, and they can do that for a short amount of time, but because they are primarily a food bank, they don't have the resources for that. So where is the government agencies? Who can they direct them to assist in this situation? So I was very curious to read about this, but what government agencies can we direct them to? And they're not asking for more money, just needs to have some guidance of where to go. Yeah. So
I don't have that answer. I know that kind of service is funded through the province, through the City of Windsor, through the county, and eventually maybe finds its way out to the county. So I suspect it's a city service that is provided, but who the contacts are, who the right people to call are, I really don't know. But it's something that could be found out, I assume, by admin, and you could share that information with your contact. Councillor Verbeke.
Really, Mayor, I sit on the non-for-profit housing for Leamington, and I can give Councillor Dunn the contact number, but it's more for, I guess, geared to income. Also, they really don't have houses on site, but she may have some contact. But we get the funding, like it's on Emerson and all that, all those houses. We get the funding from the city of Windsor, so we have to, have to do a budget and all that too. But I'll get you Cheryl's number.
Councillor Hammond?
Your worship, yes, thank you. To Councillor Dunn's question, I don't believe there is an agency. It's been a long-standing problem with the Salvation Army, that people are displaced as a result of a fire. They put them up in a hotel, and lots of times they're there for months because they're really, exactly, it's really big money, and there really is no place for them to go. And I don't think there is an agency that can direct them to a place. Salvation Army's been good in trying to accommodate all of these people that have been displaced for a long period of time.
Okay. Councillor Dunn?
Through your worship. Yeah, the other thing that the captain from the Salvation Army was saying too is that there is something, I guess, in Windsor, but this was a mother and a couple kids. They're displaced from home here, and they said it's going to be 3 months to get their home repaired after a fire. And they said, well, they've got accommodations in Windsor. Well, you take them out of school here to send them there, so there's in lies another problem. So,
Deputy Mayor?
I would suggest getting in contact with some of the churches. Many of the churches are looking for projects within our home, if you want to call it parish. I think that definitely, if they've got someone who's in need like that, I'm sure that they'd be lined up wanting to help somebody like that. They just need to reach on beyond their own walls, and I think you might find that people would be more than happy to dig a little deeper and help them out. That'd be my suggestion.
Okay. Motion to receive on the floor. All in favor? And carried. We do have a report on closed session.
Closed meeting was held at 5:30 PM prior to the open session of council pursuant to subsection 239 sub 2C of the Municipal Act 2001 for the purpose of considering 2 items. The first item was confidential report LLS 2018 dated March 16th, 2018 regarding registered plan 375 closing of Alley and Mill Street. As a result of this meeting, council provided direction and the following suggested action is brought before council for consideration. Following the passing of a bylaw closing the remainder of the alley shown on Plan 375 and the bylaw being registered in the Land Registry Office, Part 3 on 12R 22697 be offered for sale to the owner of 606 County Road 8, Staples, for the purchase price of $1 with the condition that the purchaser pay all costs of the municipality associated with the closure of that portion of the alley and the transfer of lands. That Part 9 on that same plan be offered for sale to the owner of 614 County Road 8, Staples, for the purchase price of $1 with the same conditions. That Part 10 on that same plan be offered for sale to the owner of 616 County Road 8, Staples, for the purchase price of $1 with the same conditions. Part 11 on that plan be offered for sale to the owner of 622 County Road 8, Staples, for the purchase price of $1 with the same conditions. Part 12 on that same plan be sold to whomever submits the highest sealed offer based on the invitation to submit as described in confidential report LLS 2018 with the same conditions. And that if any or all of the offers are accepted or if an offer is received in connection with Part 12, that the Director of Legal and Legislative Services be authorized to execute all documents required to complete the transactions. That would require a motion.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Hammond.
The comment.
With comment
Yes.
and support by Councillor Dunn.
Yeah, I think it's important that we talk about Mill Street not being the Mill Street that we all know.
Yes.
So if somebody's sitting at home and happens to catch the tail end of this meeting, they don't think that we're selling Mill Street off. So Mill Street that we're referring to is in Staples.
Good point.
Okay. Motion on the floor. Any further questions? All in favor? And carried.
And I just wanted to just make a comment in connection with the delegation that was before council regarding the closing of the alley and Mill Street, that those parcels of land that Ms. Setterington referred to are not contained within this motion, that another report would be brought forward in connection with those parcels. Next is the second item is a verbal report regarding uptown revitalization, potential acquisition of lands. Council provided direction to administration on this matter. Proper notice of the meeting was given. The meeting adjourned at 6:05 p.m.
Okay. Thank you very much. Consideration of bylaws.
That bylaw 1718 being a bylaw to amend the comprehensive zoning bylaw 89009 for the municipality of Leamington, which pertains to the subject lands ZBA 167 being 856 County Road 31. Bylaw 2018 being a bylaw to regulate the weight of vehicles on bridge number 53 on Mercy Road C over the 18th and 19th concession drain. Bylaw 2118 being a bylaw to stop up and close the remainder of the alley in Mill Street as shown on Plan 375 Staples. Bylaw 2218 being a bylaw to appoint municipal law enforcement officers for the purpose of enforcing dog registration compliance for the municipality of Leamington. Tax bylaw 2518 being a bylaw to levy taxes for 2018. And bylaw 2318 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Municipality of Leamington at its meeting held April 9th, 2018, be read a first, second, and third and final time.
Moved by Councillor Wilkinson, support by the Deputy Mayor. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Motion carries. There were no notices of motion circulated, so we're into open session, and I know there's a bunch of stuff to be talked about, but I want to hit the first one. Last month, before everybody took off for their wonderful vacations down in Florida, except for Councillor Verbicki and myself, not that we're jealous or anything, we had a council meeting where the Honey Foundation presented the Bank Theatre with a $100,000 check, another $100,000 contribution. And his hope was that this would stimulate the rest of the area to step up to the plate, because that was halfway there. So I received an email today from Miss Roach. Hot off the press, the Bank Theatre has made it to $325,000 as of 4 p.m. today. So they're at 80% of their fundraising goal. This cash is in hand and excludes the municipality's matching portion, as well as those amounts below that are pending. In speaking with Ursula Thiessen today, it was mentioned that we could announce their success at council tonight, as they have 2 weeks remaining in their campaign. So open up those wallets, everybody. Let's see here. Where are we now? This is from Ursula. I will bring in a deposit tomorrow morning, a little over $42,000. I believe we received $1,000 recently. We have pending $32,000 outstanding, with many contacts still uncommitted. So, obviously, great news for the Bank Theatre and for the municipality of Leamington. They're almost at that $400,000 mark. We match it up with $800,000, and they've got money in the bank already, and this Bank Theatre will be completed. It'll be awesome. So congratulations to them. Now, open session to everybody else. Councillor Wilkinson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to share with
Yep.
Council an email that I sent to Mr. Sharon this morning. It's addressed to Rob, but I'm sure Ms. Orton might want to weigh in on it as well, because it has a bylaw component to it as well. Anyways, regarding garbage in the uptown sector, late last year we received a report here to council, which was basically a strategy on how we were going to deal with the garbage uptown for people that abuse it. And I think the recommendation in that report was to better educate the residents and the business users uptown on how to sort their garbage when the garbage collection goes out. And with that, we're also going to institute heavier fines. I reviewed here, Ms. Horton sent out the bylaw activity reports for the year. And I was looking at this weekend, and I thought that we would see more orders regarding garbage here based on what I see. You know, this is the only data that I know about that exists when it comes to, you know, how we're trying to enforce garbage issues uptown. But I said to Rob, you know, to be quite honest, just in the visual that I'm seeing, I'm still seeing the problem persist, especially in the common areas. Mill Street and Erie, Erie Street over to Princess, Princess and Talbot. You know, the garbage receptacles are constantly overflowing. We still have overflowing dumpsters out there. It's very consistent, and it's been happening our entire term of council. So anyway, my question to Rob was, you know, since that report came and those recommendations were there, has Public Works seen any sort of change in that behavior? So Rob said he would answer that answer that question tonight, give his opinion, and thank you very much.
Mr. Sharon.
Thank you, Mayor Patterson. And as Councillor Wilkinson alluded to, I think Ms. Horton will have some comments as well on the enforcement side. Councillor Wilkinson was correct. Last year when we brought our report to council, we tried to make it as comprehensive as we could. I think I mentioned to council at that time I read a report from the 1980s and I could have written it the day before. The problems were very similar, but I think in the report we only went back and described in detail what we've done since 1992, and we only went back 25 years because there were a number of changes and attempts to address this particular issue, but when administration looked at it, we did determine that the way in which we were doing it, the program that we had set up, was likely the best way in which to try and manage garbage in the uptown going forward, and it was education and enforcement. So you are correct, Councillor. Since that, and again, just to, if I could summarize, what I think is the primary issue, and that is residents and commercial businesses taking bags of garbage and basically putting them beside our litter containers that are meant just to collect litter from people uptown shopping, essentially using it as a dumping area for their garbage any day of the week, whenever they so choose. Certainly we are left in a challenging situation as a municipality because once it is dumped there, what choice do we have but to pick it up? If we don't pick it up, the municipality starts to look terrible in the uptown. We continue to pick it up like we do. It's almost like we're encouraging the behavior. And so that's why we landed on this education and enforcement component. So we did create this waste and recycling information sheet. Staff worked with the BIA to make sure that everybody was on the same page. If council has not seen it, you can find it on our website. I can certainly get you a copy. We also included this sheet with all of the business licensing. So any business in the uptown that comes to get it, they get this information sheet. And again, we've put it in various places. But Councillor, you're right, the behavior is continuing. Ms. Horton will speak to activities that we have done, as council can appreciate. It's quite a labor-intensive process you literally have to try and either catch the business owners or the residents putting the garbage out, so staking out and waiting for somebody to do the behavior, or we take the garbage, like we have done on a number of occasions, we cut it open, we sift through the garbage and try and find some form of identifier to determine where the garbage came from. As council can also appreciate, that's not as simple. I mean, we need to just take safety precautions for staff who are actually doing that. There could be sharps in there, a whole bunch of other things, chemicals that could result in chemical burns. And so that is a labor-intensive process, though we feel that we have reached the point, because the behavior is continuing, despite our efforts, our education efforts and some enforcement efforts, that moving towards focusing on the education piece, because that was the plan we set up. Let's get the word out there and give people the benefit, businesses, people who are living in the uptown, give them the benefit of the doubt. Make sure that we are clear in what the expectations are when garbage gets collected and where it doesn't, and who is responsible for the garbage. So if you're a commercial business, your garbage is your responsibility. Though we do have the bag and tag program for businesses who just, given restrictions to the size of their commercial business, may not have an opportunity to have their own dumpster. It might be a small commercial business and they can't really store their garbage. over an extended period of time, they can purchase individual bags through our waste collector. But getting the education, I mean, we did create the document, the education piece is there, and we're talking about now this coordinated effort of trying to enforce, again, which will be a costly endeavor. It will take a lot of resources to try and address this, because it will have to be on an individual by individual basis. Which business or which residence is actually putting the garbage out there, and then go about a series of fines and other types of prosecutions to try and stop the behavior.
Mr. Neufeld?
I just want to add to that. It may sound easy that, well, we just need to go out and now enforce our bylaws. But there is going to be a significant investigation component of that beforehand. It's likely that the investigation component will be much more time-consuming and expensive than the actual enforcement side. So, I don't want to leave council with this idea that, well, we've got our bylaw in hand, now off we go and we'll just start fining the offenders. There's going to be some significant investigation that's going to have to happen in the front end, which will have cost implications as well. We're prepared to do that, and Ms. Orton is going to speak further to that. We all are frustrated by this, and we all agree that it's time to take these steps, but I just didn't want it to be, I didn't want it to appear to be easier than it's going to be.
Ms. Orton?
When I received the complaints over the last couple of weekends, I asked our bylaw enforcement officers to give me some detailed notes about the activity that they've undertaken going back to last June. So I have some notes related to some specific properties and some specific hotspots that have been identified, and I'll go through those in some detail with you. Back June 29th, 2017, complaint at 4042 Mill Street West. There was garbage behind that business. As a result of that complaint, law enforcement officers went to that business, and the property was subsequently cleaned up. The 13th of September at 40 Talbot Street West, again, complaint of garbage bin overflowing. That is a significant hotspot that's been on the radar for a long time. There is a land maintenance order on that property. So because there is a land maintenance order on that private property, the municipality, excuse me, does contact WDS and have that bin dumped at the owner's expense. And that was done on that date. It happened again in October, and that bin was dumped at the owner's expense. The end of October, the 31st, there was a complaint of garbage bags piled around various municipal sidewalk garbage cans, and that's what Rob has spoken to. That is a significant concern, and it does happen very regularly. Law enforcement officers canvassed the area, talking to business owners, educating them on the proper ways to dispose of their garbage. That was a targeted area based on the location of the garbage at the particular bins. Again, in December, the 4th and the 6th, there was a complaint of garbage bags piled around various municipal sidewalk garbage cans. At that time, we had this pamphlet prepared. It was handed out in both English and Spanish. It has been translated. It, of course, contains the rules pertaining to the disposal of commercial and residential waste and recycling. Letters were issued to businesses suspected of using the street garbage receptacles, stating that they were under investigation for leaving that trash. That did generate a number of telephone calls to the municipality when those business owners received that piece of correspondence. Our bylaw enforcement officers met with Public Works, the individuals who are mostly responsible for going out and collecting that trash when it's left on the sidewalks. And that's when they did start to look into the contents of the garbage to find evidence of where it was being generated. At that point, officers did go to the businesses if they did find evidence as to where that garbage was being generated, and specifically talk about the fines associated with the disposing of trash. Again, on the 7th of December at 2630 Talbot Street East, complaints of tenants disposing garbage at sidewalk receptacles. This was specific to that address, so officers did some investigation to determine if it was actually being generated from that location. They talked to the owners of the property about the tenants disposing garbage at sidewalk receptacles. They were provided the options for getting rid of the garbage. And apparently owners did rent a WDS bin for that property as a result of that communication. January 4th, the corner of Erie and Talbot, there was just a complaint of construction debris on the sidewalk, and that was cleared up that afternoon. January 9th, Mill Street West, again, garbage at a sidewalk receptacle. That was a call from Public Works to our bylaw enforcement. The officers investigated looked into the bags for evidence of origin, found some evidence that would suggest it was coming from a fitness club, spoke with the owner of the fitness club, who indicated that the employees may not be aware of the process because there is a WDS bin at that location. Another bag contained evidence that it was coming from a local restaurant, which is located at Mill and Erie Street. A notice of investigation was left at that particular address, again with the English and Spanish translation of our waste recycling information sheet. And there was no further reports of that particular restaurant's garbage being in or around that bin. On that same date, another call from Public Works, more garbage around a sidewalk receptacle. That evidence from that garbage bag indicated that it was deposited by a financial institution. The officer did attend that institution, spoke with the receptionist there, and they apparently were not aware that using street receptacle for commercial garbage was not allowed. The options were explained to that business, and the information sheet was left. Other information within that garbage was that it was coming from a jewelry store. Again, officers attended that jewelry store, provided the options and the information sheet to that owner. And no more garbage has been originating from those two businesses, at least that we are aware. Same date, another garbage bag evidence of items being consistent with items that might come from a bridal shop. A letter was sent to that owner who did attend town hall, and a meeting was held with that owner regarding the disposing of garbage. No further issues with that business. One of the bars at Erie Street South did obtain evidence that there was garbage coming from that particular bar, although that was denied by that owner. However, there's not been an increase in garbage at that particular location. However, there is still some concerns with the garbage being generated from that particular bar. Again, 42 Talbot Street East, that is on, now we're still in January of 2018. Again, the garbage bin overflowing at 42 Talbot Street West. Another dump that was charged to the owner of that address. And that's a regular patrol location. That happened again in February. Then in March 15th, garbage at behind a business on Erie Street South. Items inside the garbage bag were consistent with a hair salon. Spoke to the owner of the salon, who was provided with a waste and recycling information sheet. And then in March, mid-March, still the same date, 14 to 16 Erie Street South, complaints of tenants leaving garbage bags behind that business, and officers spoke with that tenant and provided them with the information sheet. So that's the activity of bylaw enforcement that has been recorded in the last few months. We do have, as Rob did indicate, we have our waste management bylaw. We have increased the fines to between $300 and $500 for contraventions. That bylaw also does provide for the municipality to remove any garbage that is found on municipal property and charge the owner of the property from where the garbage originated. And we will take steps to do that. If we find the garbage on the municipal property and do have any evidence to suggest as to where that garbage has come from, we will simply charge the owner of the property for our administrative time, public works, by law enforcement, to go out and do that investigation and cleanup. We can also charge any person. So if we have evidence of the business that has been disposing of their garbage, we can charge that person who is responsible for that business under the bylaw, and that would be a set fine of $500. Of course, those are the charges that can be challenged at court. And we would have to be prepared to provide the evidence that that is for the property from where the garbage originated. We're also looking at bringing forward a report to council with a bylaw regarding private collection bins and providing some form of enclosure for those private bins. We have had problems, as I've indicated, with some that are overflowing in our uptown area, and that just looks unsightly. Regardless of whether it's a garbage bin or not, if it's overflowing and garbage is placed around the bin, it certainly isn't something we want to look at. So we're going to be bringing forward a report to council for your consideration as to how to enclose those bins and passing bylaws in our uptown area to do that. So those are the activities that bylaw enforcement has been involved with. I have instructed our officers to now issue those tickets upon any evidence that has been found within those bags. And I will provide them with instructions to, and we'll work with Public Works on this, to determine what our administrative time has been to do those collections and then charge the property owners.
Well, actually, I want to go back to Councillor Wilkinson because he started this conversation. But Councillor Verbeke, you had your hand up. What was it in this regard that we're talking about right now? Okay. So then I've got Councillor Hammond and a couple other hands up here now. So Councillor Wilkinson, if you want to.
Thank you, Rob and Ruth. It's quite telling, everything that you mentioned there. Shocking, some parts. What I was listening for there as you got going along was to hear the fines portion. I heard you at the end there where you said you've instructed bylaw officers now to go out and start issuing tickets. Issuing tickets, does that mean that we are starting, if you get a ticket, is that a fine of $200, $500? So I'll let you answer that. But I guess my thought with the information I just got, is in regards to the first-time offenders, the people who didn't know any better, that got caught. If they don't do it again, fine and dandy. That's fantastic. What I'm hoping that we do, and it's these repeat offenders, the ones that we know we're doing it, the constant abusers, I'm hoping we throw the book at them. Get out there, enforce it, and throw the book at them. And bring it to the appeal committee afterwards if it has to. But please do. It's a plague that has been happening for far too long. And quite frankly, I don't think they take us seriously. And I'm hoping that this $300 to $500 fine will do it. If it needs to come back and get increased, I would listen to that as well. Maybe $500 isn't enough. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Ruth, do you want?
The bylaw, as you know, has the set fines associated with it. So a charge under the bylaw, so the issuing of a ticket is like a quasi-criminal proceeding. So it means that the person might essentially enter a guilty plea and just pay the fine. And that goes through the provincial offences court, and the municipality receives a portion of that fine payment ultimately. Or the person might determine that they are not guilty, and they will ask to have a hearing, so a trial, and that is in provincial offences court. So this is outside, this is not within the jurisdiction of our appeal committee, which deals with licensing and issuing of permits and that sort of thing. This is like I said, a quasi-criminal proceeding in provincial offences court. So when Peter spoke to the fact of gathering evidence and investigating, that means that the municipality has the burden of proof in a criminal trial, and that proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. So yes, it's going to be an uphill battle, perhaps in some cases, to provide our evidence to the court and for the person to be found guilty of that offense. But it's something that we're committed to doing and going through that process. So the set fine is the maximum fine, and that would hopefully be levied at the end of the day at the finding of guilt in the provincial offences court, or of course if the person just chooses to pay that fine and essentially plead guilty right at the outset. So that's the one part that I spoke to about the waste management bylaw and the fines, and the fines are $500 for under the sections that we would proceed under, and then there's other sections for lesser offenses that are $300. But for these particular cases that we talked about, and that's leaving the garbage on municipal highways, that would be a fine of $500. When I spoke to going out and picking up the garbage and the administrative time that would take, and we could levy those charges, essentially just issue an invoice if not paid, it would be just placed on municipal taxes. And again, there's really no appeal mechanism for that. So we have found that to be particularly helpful in situations where we are spending our time to go out and do the work that should be undertaken by the property owners. So there's really two lines that we can follow in order to hopefully get some compliance.
One more counterpoint then, Ruth. Could you give me an example, or could you give me you'd place that, if somebody goes out there, if one of our bylaw officers goes out there and cleans up a mattress on the side of the road, we put that onto his tax roll. Could you give me an idea of what that cost is?
I can't. It would really depend upon the amount of garbage. If it's significant and it takes a lot of time, then it would be based on what our hourly rate would be, what we're paying our public works. It would generally be public works. What we're paying them on an hourly rate, plus the cost of any vehicles.
Disposal.
So I can't give you a real estimate. We could probably just send that out for your own information. Take a little bit of time to just determine what that is.
Okay, on this same matter then, Councillor Hammond.
Your Worship, thank you. When you think of the amount of time that we've spent on this as a council in the last 3 or 4 years, which is a small fragment of the time that's spent both on this issue with bylaw, Board of Works, our legal department, Rob and his department, I agree with Councillor Wilkerson. If we don't, and at least 2 or 3 of the examples that Ruth had cited said their employees weren't aware of the bylaw, or they weren't aware that they couldn't do that. You find them once, and you can rest assured their employees are going to be aware of it before the next time they go to think about putting the garbage out. And I think in the times that we live in, it's the only recourse we have, is to, once you put out 2 or 3 and find 2 or 3 people, I think it'll echo throughout this town, and they'll all understand we no longer can do what we're doing right now.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I found it interesting, and I agree with Rob that yes, this has been a problem since probably the 80s. But I'll tell you, I sat on the BIA I've been on it for 20 years, coming close to 20 years. And we had the situation in hand in that All of our people knew how to dispose of garbage, whether they liked it or not. That was the quibble, right? The quibble between the store owners and the BIA and administration was the one side didn't like what the other side was telling them to do, but we did not have any of this BS going on. The people that had garbage back in the 80s, the 90s, 2000, because I was one of them, we were diligent, we were cognitive of what we could do, we were respectful, and that's what's changed. We got a bunch of idiots here. When you tell me a bridal store and a jewelry store don't know how to put away garbage, those people aren't newbies. Those people have been here a heck of a long time. This is baloney. All of these people saying we didn't know it was our employees, that's a line of malarkey. I don't want to give them any more grace. We've given them grace for way too long. It's time that we take up the sheriff in town role. We need to be tough, and we don't give anybody grace. Because we look out on our streets, we're getting taken advantage of by these people that don't have any manners, they don't have any respect, and they don't care that the people living on our street, like in our subdivisions and in our residential area, are paying for their laziness and their sloppiness. I'm sick and tired of it. We're going to have to be hardline. I don't care if they come whining. Send them to us if that's the case, because I'm sick and tired of that kind of stuff. The bridal store appalls me. That appalls me. They've been here long enough to know that. And the restaurants, why would you put your restaurant garbage in a bag on the street when you know darn well rats and whatever else is going to get into it? So we just need, excuse me, we need to get tough, and there's no more grace. As far as I'm concerned, as long as you've had that from when you opened your business, now that we have business licensing, we have a trail, we know exactly what we're handing out, and if you don't know by the end of month 3, excuse me, you're not going to know by the end of month 6, excuse me, or in 20 years, you're never going to know. But you will know when that money comes out of your pocket. So to me, no more grace, no more being Mr. Nice Guy, because we've done that and it doesn't work. We're working with a new customer. There are new levels of tolerance coming from here. That's my way, and I can back it up. I can say, you know what, no more. No more.
Councillor Dunn?
Through you, Your Worship. Ruth, you talked about a certain business that you, bylaw has to go around and repeatedly have their bin dumped. Have you looked at sending the administration fees for that particular business?
They are charged, they should be charged anyway, $100 every time we do that. Administrative fee, it's just a set fee for following up on an order that's been issued, and then the fee for WDS to dump the bin.
Thank you. And then the second part of this was that you said that if we give a find out and they can pay it, then they realize they've done wrong, but they can also take it to court. And that's when you have to provide evidence. And at that point, when you talk about evidence, this is the camera thing that has popped into my head about having, if you have camera evidence, like video evidence, as opposed to just papers, would that give you a little bit more strong hand in court?
It may and it may not. To be able to identify someone on camera might be difficult. It's hard to say. I'd have to see the video, of course. You just don't know if it would provide any evidence. And then to be able to identify the person, you would have to have somebody who knows the person as well. So it's possible. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Neufeld.
I'll deal with the last issue first, and that is that, again, the idea of having cameras may be a good one, but you have to then take it to the next step and say, well, who's going to pay for them? Who's going to monitor them? Who's going to maintain them? And is it the role of the municipality to be putting up cameras in our uptown? Some would argue yes, and many would argue no. Security, it could be argued, is that of the property owner. So to just expand on what Ruth was saying, it may help and it may not, but I'm not sure that that is the first line of defense. One of the important reasons I wanted Ruth to walk through this report from our bylaws officers is because it's incredibly frustrating for administration to hear that perhaps, well, it's not perhaps, that administration, somebody's not doing their job. I read it as late as this afternoon on the BIA website. This garbage thing, that means that somebody's not doing their job. And I don't think that's fair. We are trying to do the job as best we can. We don't disagree that now is the time to really go after it. But I want to applaud our bylaws officers, at least in this interim period, for taking the time to open the bags, identify where it may be coming from, and going to those businesses not to hand out a fine immediately, which could seem awfully aggressive and bullying to accomplish something, but rather they spoke to these people, and the ones that we've identified, it doesn't appear that they have violated the law again. So using the principle that you discipline to the level of changing behavior, I think that the bylaws officers have done an incredible job with what they have and in the time frame that they have had it. On that same note, I really want to applaud our public works. They didn't just go and pick up the garbage. They called back to our bylaws officers, understanding that this is a team effort. And did you know that there are bags out here beside this, so we should take a look at them. Our administration, our employees are working together because they understand that this is a priority for council and senior administration, that we try and get our hands around this thing. So I wanted to make sure that we understood why I wanted Ruth to take the time to go through this report, because you're right, Councillor Wilkinson, you can look at the statistics, right, and it doesn't appear like, well, where are the orders, where are the fines, but the method that we have been using is trying to educate, trying to get people to change their behaviors without having to take the hard line. I guess now it's time, and we're ready to do that. I think it's also important for people to know that we are picking up on a daily basis in the uptown. This isn't a matter of the municipality sitting on their hands and waiting for garbage to pile up. We're there on a daily basis. So it is, to the Deputy Mayor's point, I think it's broken to such an extent that now we do need to come with a very strong reaction. I think we've given them fair warning now, and we are prepared to do that.
Ruth.
Something Peter alluded to earlier, but also just picking up on Councillor Dunn's comment about the cameras. I think the more effective tool and probably less costly would be to perhaps have some actual investigation, which would be the form of our officers actually sitting outside in more of a less conspicuous, perhaps, vehicle, waiting for people to actually drop their garbage on the sidewalk, and then at that point being able to confront the person, of course in a safe manner, but issue a ticket directly at that time, rather than having the camera and then trying to link that visual to perhaps whom it might be. I think spending the time on having those officers stationed at the hot spots, perhaps early in the morning or late at night, but waiting for the actual the drop to take place is probably more effective, and in the shorter term, certainly less costly.
Or we could simply eliminate garbage pickup in the uptown core altogether and let each resident and business owner look after their own garbage and take it to the dump the way they should. That was actually not a recommendation, but referred to in an email that I received from the chair of the BIA, who stated that in her cottage town, that's exactly what happens. They have no garbage pickup, and the fines are very heavy if the residents don't take care of their own stuff. My bigger question here is, okay, we train everybody uptown, we go in with a heavy hand, we get everybody on board, and our local residents are actually the ones who come up and drop their garbage on our streets uptown, which is also happening right now as well. How do you enforce that? I don't know that we're ever going to get perfection on this. The last email we got on the weekend from the BIA on Sunday, was it? Sunday. I came up, I took a look at it, and in comparison to what I've seen in the past, it wasn't as offensive. I mean, it's still offensive, but it wasn't as offensive as it can get. I don't think we'll ever have perfection. And I think we have to have our expectations set there. I fear what we're getting into here with the heavy-handedness may lead to a lot of expense. We're now becoming the garbage police. And I think if these challenges start going to court, we're going to be spending a lot more money than it's worth the effort. So I don't have an answer. We're trying to educate, and I think some of the examples that Ruth gave tonight, some that we've heard personally, the merchants, the residents uptown are getting it. It's just we've got that handful that just don't care, and those are the ones that we really have to go for. So let's see where the penalty comes in, see how it works, and 6 months from now we'll have this conversation again. 6 months, maybe. Anyway, so Councillor, thanks for the question. Thanks for bringing it up. It's been on our minds, and hopefully we see some positive movement, more positive movement than we've had. So I got to go back now to Councillor Verbeke and your open session.
Good thing I wrote it down because I would have forgot it by now. Received, we'll worry about we'll bring the good news in at the end. Received several calls over the last little while. I guess one concerning is a gentleman that lives along the trail, our greenway, was broken into his shed. And the hydro company opens the gates. I don't know, he's kind of curious where they get the keys from. They do their business there, and the gate remains open for the rest of the week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, no hydro trucks there. I guess who's in charge of opening and closing it, and when are they going to be done using the trail for, or can they start closing it up from the north to the south? Like I'm talking, this incident happened around the 6th concession where the transfer station is, and that's one thing. I know you probably don't have an answer, but I'm just bringing it forward that it's a concern. Rob, I'm going to give you this letter because there's a couple other things, and he wants you to call him, so you don't have to write stuff down. He says he can hardly walk on the trail north of the 6th concession because they just put shot rock in or Gabion rock. So are they going to put the trail back the way it was when they're finished?
Yes, through your worship. The trail is actually closed right now. This particular resident, if his property is abutting it, perhaps that's how he is gaining access. But the last time I was out there at the entrances at the roadways, there's signs notifying everyone that the trail is closed while Hydro One continues their work. When they're finished, yes, they're going to restore all of the trail back to its original condition. It'll basically be a fine screening surface on the trail like it was before. And all along the east side of the property, we're considering some certain type of plantings rather than just planting grass that we then have to go out there and cut and doesn't really serve an environmental purpose. Some native plantings of wildflowers and those sorts of things to try and promote some
Well, that's
environmental benefits.
That's the situation. He said the police and himself followed the four-wheeler tracks down the trail to the gates, like it's just, they can use it full. Now, if they're not there between the 12th and the 7th, why are the gates still open?
Your Worship, they're supposed to button up the gates every night. That was the arrangement that we had put in place with them. If they were not doing work on the trail, we would have those gates closed. Primarily, that's going to prevent the average vehicle from driving down there. If a vehicle, wants to gain access, they'll gain access.
By moving the rocks, that's another complaint.
Well,
yeah.
even around, typically we have drains, but if there's any sort of private entrance around there, they can typically, gain access to the trail with the vehicle. So it's in place to help prevent vehicles from going down there, but certainly like your regular ATVs, anybody can gain access to the trail just by going
And I
around
tried
the
to
gates.
to calm them down today because there's a lot of tractor trailers sitting at the transfer station, but I'm just assuming that they're probably loading stuff back up. But he just wants to know if that's going to become a parking lot for Hydro One, which it's not done yet. So I just tried to comfort with that. And he says now the 6th concession, even though they did get new pavement around his area, I guess the whole 6 is the road's really getting chewed up. So from these trucks and the entrances and the cutoffs, I know you're trying to get greenhouses to put paved approaches in, and I just hope that when they knock this, the crap off the shoulder there too in the trail, that it gets. I just bring it to your attention. So thanks for that. And another one, I know Brenda's not here, but it was a gentleman who wants to know why he needs a police clearance for the B&B. And if he does, he wants to know if the other establishments that house people, hotels, motels, need it. He's not getting the answers he wants from the town hall, and I just said I would bring it forward. And the health inspector says he doesn't need an inspection, so I'll just leave that with you for now, and I'll talk to you after about it. A gentleman called up about some lines on the 3rd concession, and I told him to go to City Works, and I came into Town Hall today, and he was at the counter, not liking it, but he went through it, and his complaint was that, well, I noticed it traveling Wilkinson Drive that the bike lanes and everything's gone. I don't know if we got paint that went off or we got cheap paint and disappeared over a month or so. There's no bike lanes, there's no dividing line now on Wilkinson Drive. And if you're doing that, is it possible to put shoulder lines all the way down to 31 on the 3rd concession? I guess he almost run off the road during a snowstorm, and he approached somebody, and this was just recently, that blizzard. So that's, I guess, for your information. And my last complaint before I get to the good news is, I don't know how to word this. What can we do to help residents with seagull problems? There's a building in town that I guess there must be water on the roof. It's a business on the east side. Seagulls are up there crazy, squawking and that, and they're nesting now. So other than putting a banger up, I'm not sure what can be done, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention and see. I can give you his name afterwards. He lives across the road of this place. Also, I'm going to go to the good news. The Southwestern Ontario Conference for Tourism was held at the Best Western Conference. It was an excellent 2 days, March 20th and 21st. The only two things I'm going to touch on is congratulations go to Lucan, the town of Lucan, for the best festival. They have a bacon festival, and they have upwards to 10,000 motorcycles there.
No.
And they won best festival, a 1-day festival. For bacon. Everything's good with bacon. And I guess the mayor was there trying to promote her push to have Kraft do the Hockeyville. And a week later, Lucan was awarded the Hockeyville, so I'm happy with that. And on my last note, I'd like to thank the agricultural Leamington Agricultural Society for the upcoming fair in June, and also giving kudos for, I guess it's been a long while to get the RCMP ride down here, so looking forward to seeing that. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the items you mentioned, the complaint items, one was regarding the business licensing, if that's the background check and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure, well, you'll have to mention it to Brenda to have her take a look at it. Yep, Ruth. Well, you're never going to get the answers you want, right? But and then the other stuff, Rob, I'm sure you took note on those things. Okay. Anything else from council? Open session? I have a list. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, just to address, let me try that again. Councillor Verbeek's concern over the seagulls, the issue has been taken care of.
Okay. My list is lengthy, so I'll go through them really, really quickly. March the 7th, I was lucky enough to attend the citizenship ceremony at Cardinal Carter. Welcomed a bunch of new citizens, not to just to Leamington, but to the entire area. On the 8th, I attended the retail business licensing meeting put on by the Chamber of Commerce at our art gallery. Well attended, and answers given to all those who had the questions. Again, maybe not liking the answers, but understanding why the business licensing is being put in place, because it was the businesses who wanted it. On the 13th, Winners had their grand opening, so I was able to attend the ribbon cutting ceremony there. On March 20th to 21st, Councillor Verbeke alluded to it, we hosted, Leamington hosted the Ontario Southwest Tourism Conference, which was kind of nice not seeing it go to the other end of the county for once. And the Best Western Plus was the perfect facility for it. Great attendance, and by all accounts, really, really, really well received by those that were in attendance. Some their first time to Leamington. On the 22nd, I attended the University of Windsor at the grand opening for the Creative Arts Center in the old Armories building downtown. It was really quite exciting. On the 23rd, attended the Chamber of Commerce luncheon, which was in regard to the energy costs, and a number of presentations that were going on there, some really quite entertaining and the others quite informative. Yep. On the 29th, a number of us attended the annual Warden's Banquet, and that was up in, well, I guess it's not Windsor, is it? Is that Lakeshore? Sure. Technically, I guess Lakeshore. That same afternoon, the CAO and I sat down with the OGVG representative again in regard to the community engagement, and I'm going to trick the deputy mayor into taking that one on. Been telling her about it. She's quite excited about it. So it really, the plan they came forward with is really quite exciting. I can't wait to share it with everybody, or have it shared with everybody. April the 7th, we did a ribbon cutting, or a sod turning, pardon me, for the Habitat for Humanity on Askew Street. Nice, crisp day. Well attended again, and quite exciting. 64th house building that they've done, and the number is 64 on Askew, so it was kind of cool that way. And then that evening, Betty and I attended the Roma Club annual general meeting, brought greetings from all of us at Town Hall, and it's really nice to see what's happening there. There's a new sense of life, I think, at the Roma Club, and it was really great to see. So that's my report of everything that I've been up to lately. So if there's anything from staff under open session, if not, motion, oh yes, non-debatable. Statements, members, non-debatable. Councillor.
Just one, Your Worship. I think it's appropriate that we send our condolences to the family of Dennis Jackson. Dennis was a lifelong area resident of Leamington, Wheatley, and Cottam. He was known to have the world's largest collection of Heinz memorabilia. I know Dennis personally and his family, and great guy. He loved going around southwestern Ontario and telling the story of Heinz, and as he did that, of course, he was telling the story of Leamington and promoting for us. So, great guy. Sad to see him go. And our condolences.
I'll take care of that. Anything else? If not, motion to adjourn. Councillor Dunn, Councillor Verbicki, all in favor? Carried. Good night.